Chapter 131. Very good. What's the matter, Mr. Chin? Bae-yunj frowned slightly. She didn't expect Mr. Chin to call her at this time. Mr. Chin was silent for a moment. Guer, I'm your father. Hearing this, Bae-yunj, who was in the bedroom, paused for a moment before she laughed lazily. Mr. Chin, you don't want to have a daughter like me, right? Guer, it's not. Mr. Chin couldn't help but explain. Just pretend that I've never returned to the Chin family. It's good that we go our separate ways. Bae-yunj's tone was indifferent. When Mr. Chin heard this, he suddenly realized that Bae-yunj really didn't care about the Chin family. Guer, it's your mother's fault. I'll ask her to apologize to you, okay? Mr. Chin felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. The image in his mind slowly became clear. He recalled Bae-yunj's disappointment and bitterness in the Chin family and gradually turned into mockery and ridicule. Bae-yunj's red lips curled up and she said calmly, Mr. Chin, your concern is 2 years late. Goo, Mr. Chin's throat choked. Before he could say anything, the call was hung up. This made Mr. Chin stand stiffly on the spot, holding the phone in his hand. When Mr. Chin returned to the living room, Mrs. Chin glanced at him. You were rejected? Ah Ting, you wouldn't do such a thing in the past. Mr. Chin ignored her and called his assistant. Do you still have Guer's bank card? Mr. Chin was relieved when he heard his assistant say that he still had it. He said, in the future transfer 200,000 yuan to Guer every month. Chin Ting, what are you doing? Mrs. Chin suddenly stood up. Since she doesn't want to come back, she has to live a better life outside. Mr. Chin looked deeply at Mrs. Chin, pursed his lips and walked upstairs. This scene made Mrs. Chin's mind a mess and her eyes turn red. Why were they all so concerned about Bae-yunj? And now they were going against her. Could it be that she had done something wrong? Mrs. Chin couldn't control her emotions. She blacked out and fainted in the living room. It was only when Mr. Chin came downstairs that he realized that he had sent her to the hospital in a panic. At the Ho residence, Bae-yunj and his 2 overseas interns were having a multi-party conversation. They had drawn up 3 directions in the field of computer science for them to choose from. Teacher, are you very familiar with these fields? A blonde boy's eyelids twitched. It's all right. If you guys like other fields, that's fine too. Bae-yunj's casual tone immediately made the 2 interns feel an invisible pressure, and their scalps began to tingle. They were the top 2 interns in the batch of interns from the Computing Institute in Country R. Originally, they were not convinced that a foreign teacher was assigned to them. After all, our nation's computing talents had always been ahead of other countries. Why did they find them a teacher from Country A? Besides, who would be willing to work on projects with their own teacher through a screen every day? However, at this moment, the 2 interns seemed to understand Marcus's care and trust for them. Just now, when Bae-yunj explained the coding principles to them, they began to feel the gap between them and Bae-yunj. This teacher was really good, but they couldn't understand. As 2 interns who had been regarded as geniuses since young, this was the first time they experienced the pain of being bad students. P.S. The PK has advanced to the 2nd round. Chapter 132. After a long time, before the 2 of them could speak, Bae-yunj raised her eyebrows. We'll check on the progress in 3 days. How about that? Wait a minute. One of the interns woke up abruptly. What's the matter? The pen in Bae-yunj's hand stopped spinning. For a moment, the 2 interns looked at each other and found it hard to speak. Unexpectedly, after a while of silence, they heard her chuckle. Bae-yunj said unhurriedly, Actually, if you really don't like me that much, you can ask Marcus to change your teacher. A few days ago, she heard Marcus say that the 2 interns were not very satisfied with her. The 2 interns were speechless. Teacher, I'm not. You've misunderstood. The intern with brown curly hair immediately explained anxiously. Yes. We don't want to change teachers. The other intern echoed. Bae-yunj's eyelids twitched. Then why are you throwing a tantrum? No. Teacher, we don't understand what you're talking about. Bae-yunj was speechless. Unknowingly, the atmosphere was strangely cold. In the end, Bae-yunj still asked them to choose a topic and write a summary report for her. She would teach them after she had a rough understanding of their professional standards. Our nation's computing institute. Teach Jasmine, how are you getting along with your teacher? Did you make her unhappy? Marcus was also afraid that the two of them would anger Bae-yunj. After all, Bae-yunj was a big shot that he had painstakingly invited. Teacher Marcus, if we did, it wasn't on purpose. Tich took a deep breath. He had not recovered from the blow. Marcus's smile froze. Teacher Marcus, how's my teacher's temper? Jasmine was worried. I'm quite afraid that she'll scold me. Marcus was speechless. Was this really the most outstanding seated player in their computing institute? After the lesson, Bae-yunj, who was very quiet, went through the content that she had just taught. However, the more she thought about it, the clearer she felt that the content was. There shouldn't be anything that she couldn't understand. Hence, on this day, Bae-yunj suffered her first defeat in her life. He didn't expect that teaching students would be more difficult than doing research. Soon, Bae-yunj suddenly heard a knock on the door not far away. Who is it? Bae-yunj turned her head. It's me. Hwashida's low and magnetic voice sounded from outside the door. Hearing this, Bae-yunj stood up and went to open the door. Brother, what's wrong? Bae-yunj raised her eyebrows and looked at the man who seemed to have just returned and hadn't had time to take off his suit jacket. Hwashida's unwavering gaze landed on her. Have you finished your homework? I'm done. Bae-yunj walked out of the bedroom again. She raised her head and asked with a smile. Brother, did you look for me because of this? No. Hwashida stared straight at her for a while, then raised his thin lips and pinched her cheek casually. His expression was indifferent, but it made one's legs go weak. Brother came over to ask Yunyun if you want to go home with me. Bae-yunj was stunned for a moment and subconsciously met the man's seductive gaze. 10 minutes later, in the car, Hwashida looked at Bae-yunj, who was carrying a bag, and suddenly remembered that this little fellow would not be able to sleep if she did not have some of his scent. Will you not be able to sleep if you go back to the old residence with me? Chapter 133. When Bae-yunj heard this, the corners of her lips curled up unconsciously. She placed one hand on the car door and rested her chin on her hand. She turned to look at him. Her overly beautiful eyes were clear and bright. Yes. Hearing this, the man's low and magnetic laughter sounded lazy and sexy, making one's eardrums itch. Then I'll coax Yunyun to sleep before going back to sleep. Bae-yunj smiled. Thank you, brother. He had the face of a refined scum. Was she telling him to go back to sleep? Hwashidu, who was in the driver's seat, looked at the little girl's perfunctory smile and teased her unconsciously. He asked lightly, Yunyun, why is your attitude towards me so bad? Bae-yunj did not expect Hwashidu to be so observant. He was worlds apart from the straight man in school, Lu Yuanxi. But in the next moment, Bae-yunj only heard the man lecturing her lazily and frivolously. Next time, you have to be polite to me. Bae-yunj. He was really teaching her like a child. After getting out of the car, Bae-yunj walked into the Hua family's old residence. Only then did she realize how deep the heritage of a century-old distinguished family was. The Qin family was considered a well-known wealthy family in Yincheng, but compared to the Hua family, it was indeed much worse. Master Du, old madam is already waiting in the hall. This is... When the butler at the door saw Bae-yunj, a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. This girl was really beautiful. Even though he had been in the Hua family for so many years and had seen many beautiful and thin people, this girl who came back with Master Du still made his eyes light up. Hello, my name is Bae-yunj. Bae-yunj curled her lips. The butler immediately nodded and said with a smile, Miss Pei, I'm the butler here. My surname is Li. Butler Li, go and get someone to tidy up the room next to mine, Hwashida suddenly said. Hearing this, Butler Li immediately understood who this was prepared for. Okay, I'll go and prepare it now, Butler Li quickly said. In the living room, beside the sofa was a charming old woman. She was dressed elegantly and dressed elegantly. Old madam. Hwashida's tone was neither fast nor slow. Oh, you still know to come back? I thought that the next time I saw you would be when I passed away. The old madam obviously had a lot of complaints about Hwashidu, but in the blink of an eye, when she saw Bae-yunj beside Hwashidu, She suddenly jumped up. What's going on? Where did you get this girl from? When the old lady saw Bae-yunj, she couldn't stop smiling. However, when she got closer and saw that Bae-yunj was still wearing her school uniform, her smile froze. She turned to Hwashidu and said, Shidu, although our family lacks a wife, you can't commit a sin. When Hwashidu heard this, he lifted his thin eyelids and glanced at old Madam lightly. Hello, Grandma. I am the younger sister of Brother Shidu's friend. My name is Bae-yunj. Bae-yunj's red lips curled up and her eyes curved. However, Bae-yunj did not notice that the man glanced at her with his light-colored eyes. The darkness in his eyes disappeared in a flash. So that's how it is. The old madam suddenly remembered. Wait, young lady, are you the girl who lives in Shida's house? Yes. Bae-yunj was calm. However, she did not notice that the old madam's expression had become even more complicated. Chapter 134. Just as the old madam was feeling uneasy, a soft voice suddenly sounded not far away. It was filled with surprise. Sister. Bae-yunj turned around and saw an exquisite and cute little guy running over. He held her hand and rubbed against it, feeling a little shy. Sister, why are you here? Are you here to see Momo? Hwashida's cold and abstinent pale-colored eyes glanced at him indifferently. He sat by the sofa and reached out lazily to unbutton the 2 buttons on his collar. His temperament was light and lazy. Yes, I'm here to see Momo. Bae-yunj squatted down, hugged the little guy, and kissed him. The little guy was so happy that his cheeks were red. I knew that sister likes Momo. The man next to her suddenly sneered inexplicably. Bae-yunj turned around and saw the handsome and noble man leaning lazily on the sofa. His clean and well-defined jawline was superior, refined and frivolous. Bae-yunj snapped back to her senses and looked away without saying anything. At this moment, the old madam smiled and carried Momo over. Momo, how do you know Sister Pei? Alas's sister's pet. Momo tilted his head and said in a childish voice. I see. The old madam was still worried. She looked at Bae-yunj and was a little hesitant. He was still a high school student. No, it was too disgraceful. Thinking of this, the old madam was even angrier at Hwashidu. She glared at Hwashidu, who was sitting lazily beside her, and kissed Momo. My precious grandson, when you grow up in the future, don't be like your brother. If you don't have a wife, you should know not to go home. Bae-yunj. Was there such a family tradition? Then, the little guy's words were shocking. Grandma, don't worry. I'll find 10 wives in the future. The old madam's hands almost trembled when she heard that. That's not necessary. At this moment, beside her, the man who had been silent all this while, let out a low magnetic laughter. Yin-yin. Bae-yunj instinctively looked at Hwashidu when she heard this. His gaze was fixed on her. She couldn't tell what he was thinking. Suddenly, he laughed and crooked his finger at her. Come here. It was a strange coincidence. Bae-yunj sat beside Hwashidu and heard him speak calmly. Don't mind the old lady. I brought you here to change your mood. Upon hearing this, Bae-yunj was stunned. After regaining her senses, she instinctively looked up at Hwashidu. Did Hwashidu know that she had severed ties with Mrs. Chin? Suddenly, Momo, take sister to play. I have something to discuss with your brother. The old madam suddenly put the little fellow down and said, All right. Hearing this, the little fellow turned around and took Bae-yunj's hand to the 2nd floor. Sister, Alice misses you too. Let's go play with Alice. All right. After Bae-yunj regained her senses, she let the little fellow hold her hand and walked all the way upstairs. After the 2 of them left, the old madam turned around and sat on the other sofa, looking noble and cold. What's with this little girl? Hwashida's tone was light. Don't you like little girls? Bring one back and coax her. The old madam. Did she like little girls? She liked her granddaughter-in-law. Chapter 135. The man could not help but chuckle. He casually opened the cigarette box and leaned lazily against the sofa. His pale-colored eyes were cold, but the corners of his upturned eyes were charming. He was refined and frivolous. What else can happen? Can he bully a little girl? Then why did you bring her to the old residence? The old madam questioned him when she heard him say that. The man flicked the cigarette ash with his finger and said casually, "The little girl is not very happy. I'm thinking of ways to coax her." The old madam did not know what Hoshido was thinking, but she felt that something was wrong. "Oh right, don't ask her about her family." Hoshido roughly explained a few things about the Chin family to prevent the old madam from being talkative and asking about everything. However, he did not go into too much detail. However, with the old madam's way of thinking, it was easy for her to imagine some bitter scenes and develop more affection for Bei Yunj. Seeing this, Hoshido did not explain further. Upstairs. "Sister, did brother bring you here? Is sister staying at brother's place?" The little guy was obviously very happy. His big obsidian-like eyes were sparkling. "Yes." Bei Yunj glanced at Alas, who was tearing down the sofa. After a moment of silence, she decided to ignore him and sat on the carpet. However, when she turned around, she saw the little guy's heartache. "What's wrong, Mo?" Bei Yunj found it interesting and pinched his face unconsciously. The little guy said seriously, "Sister, I'll secretly tell Grandma to let you stay with me." If she lived with the big devil brother, his sister would definitely be bullied and cry every day. Why? Bei Yunj was amused. She carried the little guy over and hugged him. "Brother is very bad. He always bullies people." Taking advantage of Hoshida's absence, the little guy started to talk bad about Hoshido. Bei Yunj also listened with relish. Her eyes were curved, and she smiled lazily and brightly. She did not feel guilty at all. The little guy blushed and said foolishly, "Sister is so beautiful. Can I marry you in the future?" "Sister, think about it." Bei Yunj curled her red lips and said leisurely, "Sister, don't you like Mo?" The little guy hugged Bei Yunj pitifully, and his little voice was so cute that people wanted to kiss him. "I like it." Bei Yunj suddenly raised her eyebrows, her eyes beautiful and seductive. "But sister likes brother more." As soon as he finished speaking, the little guy seemed to have suffered a huge blow. He widened his eyes in disbelief. "But my brother is very bad. Nor would he kiss his sister." "Yes, Mo is right." Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows, pinched the little girl's face, and said with a lazy smile, "But at my age, I can't resist a bad and handsome brother." Hearing this, the little guy's eyes widened even more. He was petrified for a few seconds, then leaned on Bei Yunj's shoulder sadly. "But when Mo grows up, he's not as good-looking as Big Brother." Bei Yunj was also surprised. She did not expect the little girl to be sad because of this. Her eyebrows twitched, and she immediately coaxed, Mo, what's on your table? Sister will play with you, okay?" In someone else's house, she had made someone else's child cry. Bei Yunj suddenly felt that she was not human. "Okay." Chapter 136. However, not long after, there was a knock on the door. Then Hoshido pushed the door open and entered. "Brother, this is the sticker Grandma bought for me." The little guy was elated. Bei Yunj could tell that although the little guy said that he despised him, he actually liked Hoshido very much. Hoshido glanced at him and sat on the chair beside him. Under his black suit pants, his straight and overly abstinent long legs were placed casually. His gaze landed on the two children on the carpet. Yes. Looking at Hoshido's calm appearance, the little guy did not expect Hoshido to play with him. However, then the little guy thought of something again. He raised his furry head and looked at Hoshido seriously. "Brother, can I sleep with sister today?" "No." The man rejected him without thinking. "Why?" "Sister is very bored alone." The little guy wanted to make a scene, but he was afraid that Hoshido would throw him out. He looked angry and pitiful. "There's no reason." Hoshido leaned against the chair casually. His tone was neither fast nor slow. It was obvious that he did not intend to reason with the little guy. "Brother isn't sleeping with sister, and you're not letting me sleep with sister." The little guy continued to shock everyone with his words. For a moment, Bei Yunj, who was playing with the sticker, subconsciously stopped. Then Bei Yunj heard Hoshido's deep and magnetic voice again. There was a lazy smile as it sounded in a low voice. "How do you know that brother isn't sleeping with sister?" The little guy Sister, is brother really sleeping with you? After a while, the little guy tugged at Bei Yun's sleeve, pitifully wanting to verify it. Bei Yun reacted, and her eyelids moved. It's sister who can't sleep. Brother means to coax sister to sleep. I see. The little guy also heaved a sigh of relief, and looked like a worried little adult. Why can't sister sleep? You slept too much in the past. After a moment of silence, Bei Yun smiled and pinched his face. But Mo also sleeps a lot. Will he often be unable to sleep in the future? No, Mo is still growing, so she sleeps a lot, Bei Yun said with a smile. However, she did not notice that Hoshida's gaze had landed on her. His light-colored pupils darkened and hid all the light. A short while later, the topic changed. However, Hoshidu could clearly feel that this child was especially clingy to Bei Yun today. There was an inexplicable provocation in his eyes. It looked stupid and childish. Hoshida glanced at the little fellow who was hugging Bei Yun and acting coquettishly. Sister has lost. She has to kiss Mo. Bei Yun had already lost 3 or 4 rounds to the little girl on purpose. All right. Bei Yun laughed and kissed the little girl's cheek again. Sister, don't lose the next round. The little guy's cheeks were pink, and his eyes were sparkling. He looked especially adorable. Mo is too amazing. Sister, fight for it. Bei Yun supported her chin with one hand. Her eyes curled up as she continued to play with the little fellow. Then this time, Mo will let sister win. After the little guy finished speaking, a sly look flashed across his eyes. He said mysteriously, Sister, come closer. I'll tell you secretly how to win. Hearing this, Bei Yun also leaned over. Unexpectedly, the next moment the little guy gently kissed Bei Yun's cheek. Chapter 137. This time, Bei Yun did not expect to be secretly kissed by a little guy. However, the little guy tilted his head and said in a cute and serious manner, Sister, remember this next time. Beautiful girls can't trust others so much. Hearing this, even Bei Yun could not help but chuckle. His beautiful and eye-catching eyes were lazy and bright, making one's heart flutter. You're so young, but you know how to make girls happy? Bei Yun rubbed the little guy's head and smiled. Boys have to be responsible for making girls happy. After the little guy finished speaking, he smiled at Hoshidu. Brother, am I right? Not to mention Hoshidu. Even Bei Yun could vaguely feel that the little guy's words were intentional. Brother. Bei Yun suddenly interrupted the conversation between the two of them. Come over and help me distribute the stickers? Hearing this, Hoshidu finally stood up and walked over. He bent one knee slightly and half-squatted in front of Bei Yun. How should we distribute them? Hoshidu's slender and well-defined hand picked up the cartoon stickers on the table. He lowered his eyes. His pupils were light, but the corners of his upturned eyes were seductive. Just distribute them according to the color. After Bei Yun finished speaking, she started playing with the little guy beside her again. However, after Bei Yun finished pasting the sticker, she took the card and approached Hoshidu. When she saw the untouched sticker in his hand, the corners of her lips curled up unconsciously. Brother, do you not know how to do it? Look at this. Isn't it cute? As soon as she finished speaking, Hoshidu did not say anything. Bei Yun thought that Hoshidu was unhappy. After that, just as Bei Yun was thinking about how to speak, Hoshidu lifted his eyes again. Hoshidu looked up again. His eyes were even darker, and could not be seen clearly. Brother, you. Bei Yun was stunned for a moment and was about to say something. Suddenly, Hoshidu reached out casually. His warm fingers gently pressed against her cheek. His fingertips purposely rubbed against her face. It was itchy and soft, and it quickly raised the temperature of her face. Hoshidu laughed lazily at the end of his voice. His low voice made people blush and their hearts race. It was ostentatious and flirtatious. Very cute. Then, she pressed her little heart against Bei Yun's face. In an instant, Bei Yun froze. She was asking if the card she pasted was cute, but this man was looking straight at her. Obviously, he wasn't talking about that card. What was wrong with this man? Bei Yun said a few words casually before she left the bedroom, and went downstairs to drink water. At this moment, The little guy looked at Hwashidu and had just reacted. Brother, you're cheating. Hwashidu was in a good mood when he saw the young girl escaping just now. Even when he looked at the little fellow, the corners of his lips curled up. Brother, you. Sister, she. The little guy was so angry that he was incoherent. His bun-like face puffed up and he finally asked the complete question. Big brother, what were you doing just now? Weren't I learning from you to make your sister happy? The handsome and dignified man's posture was light, and his tone was blatantly flirtatious. He spoke without blushing or skipping a beat. The little guy wanted to say something but hesitated. He had just secretly kissed her. In comparison, it seemed like his brother had not done anything. However, he could clearly feel that his sister's attitude towards his brother was different. Chapter 138. Child. Hwashidu suddenly spoke. When the little guy heard this, he looked up at him. Who knew? Hwashidu walked in front of him and squatted down on one knee lazily, looking at the little guy at eye level. He slowly picked up the wet towel on the table and wiped the pen marks on the little guy's arm. You're not as good looking as me. She won't like you. So be good. Sister won't care about you, understand? Instantly, the little guy with exquisite and cute eyes widened his eyes. Not long after, tears slowly welled up in his eyes. Sob, 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 brother, you're lying. The little fellow was crying very sadly, but the handsome and noble man didn't have any sense of shame. All right, stop crying. He took a few more pieces of tissue from the table and slowly wiped the little guy's tears. You're even uglier this way. As soon as he finished speaking, the little guy cried even more heart-wrenchingly. Even the old madam downstairs thought that something had happened and rushed downstairs. She happened to bump into Bae Yunj, who was about to open the door. Then, the moment Bae Yunj pushed open the door, the two of them saw the little guy crying miserably at the side. Brother, what's going on? Bae Yunj did not expect to see this scene as soon as she came over after drinking water. It's okay. Old madam will coax him. Let's go. I'll show you the room. Hwashidu left with his people with a clear conscience. When Bae Yunj thought about how the little guy had cried so miserably just now, she still could not come back to her senses. Suddenly, the man in front stopped in his tracks. Bae Yunj did not come back to her senses and bumped into him. Bae Yunj was in pain from the collision. Fortunately, the man in front of her protected the back of her head with one hand and did not let her fall back. However, then, Bae Yunj heard the man's magnetic voice with a smile above her head, as if he was deliberately teasing her eardrums. Yun, I can't stand you throwing yourself at me like this. Brother, I think I have a nosebleed. Yun, listen to me. Look up. Bae Yunj sat on the chair and raised her head, allowing the man to treat her wound. However, she could still hear the low laughter in the man's deep and magnetic voice. Why was this man's chest so hard? Made of stone? Fortunately, Hwashidu had just turned around and supported her. Otherwise, she might have been injured from the fall. Why are you looking at me like that, Yun? The man's slender fingers replaced the blood-stained cotton ball. Does it still hurt? Bae Yunj's eyelids twitched unconsciously when she saw the lazy and seductive smile on the man's face. Brother, is it that funny? You've been smiling. Bae Yunj casually stated the truth. No, my heart aches for Yun. After Hwashidu dealt with Bae Yunj's injuries, he looked at the girl sitting obediently on the chair with an expressionless face. He could not help but turn his face away and smile. The little girl was really cute. However, Bae Yunj, who saw this scene, did not think so. Bae Yunj. Indeed, this man's words could not be trusted. You can go out first. Bae Yunj's nose bridge hurt when she looked at Hwashidu now. Don't you want me to coax you to sleep? Hwashidu thought that the little girl's pride was hurt, so he restrained the smile on his lips and said patiently. Chapter 139. Are you angry? I didn't laugh at Yun. I just think that Yun is cute. Hwashidu's straight and ascetic long legs were squatting lazily. His pair of pale-colored eyes were cold, but the corners of his upturned eyes were charming. This refined and frivolous appearance seemed to have a hint of indulgence. It made one's heart flutter uncontrollably. No, I can sleep. I don't need brother to coax me. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, Huashidu thought of the gift Qin Yu had given her. He glanced at the backpack Bei Yunj had brought, and the smile at the corners of his eyes disappeared. He was still careless. I understand. Huashida glanced at the little girl, whose nose bridge was slightly red, and suddenly laughed softly, his voice lingering at the end. That's good too. I'll go back first. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain myself if the old madam sees me in the middle of the night. Those who don't know might think that I'm seducing the little girl on purpose. Bei Yunj was speechless. It was indeed difficult to explain a nosebleed in the middle of the night, especially when the man sitting beside her looked like this. Good night, brother. Bei Yunj looked up and said. Huashidu looked at Bei Yunj's inexplicably obedient appearance after she was injured. He could not help but reach out and scratch her chin lazily. Okay, good night, little Union. However, no one had expected that before Huashidu reached the door, he would hear the old madam talking to the maid. Huashida's eyes darkened and he turned off the lights. The room was plunged into darkness. Where is she? The little girl isn't in the room? The old madam was puzzled. Didn't Shida bring her here? Maybe she went to walk in the garden. Old madam, don't worry. Butler Lee has tidied up carefully. He definitely won't make Miss Pei unhappy. Aren't I just feeling guilty? The old madam sighed. How old is this little girl? Huashidu, who was in the room, heard the old madam's words and his thin eyelids lifted. At this moment, the conversation outside had not ended. However, Huashidu also felt that Bei Yunj had suddenly approached. However, there was no movement after that. The old lady outside started nagging again. But since I've already brought him here, I can't just send him back. This young lady, I actually quite like her. Old madam, your worries are groundless. Why would Master Du lay his hands on a little girl? The maid laughed. Sigh. Forget it. I can't be bothered with his matters anymore. After saying that, the old lady left with a stomach full of resentment. Shortly after, just as Huashidu was about to turn on the lights, a layer of warmth covered the back of his hand. It was the little girl's hand. A moment later, Huashidu turned on the lights and realized that Bei Yunj was gradually relaxing. Little girls are afraid of the dark. Huashidu suddenly recalled the last time at the Qin family's old residence. The young lady's eyes were blocked by her hat, and she subconsciously grabbed his clothes. Big brother, rest early too. Bei Yunj obviously didn't want others to know about this. All right. Huashida's eyes landed on Bei Yunj unwaveringly. Then, the corners of his lips curled up and he turned to leave. A few minutes later, there was a knock on Bei Yunj's bedroom door. When she opened the door, it was the little guy in his pajamas. He was holding a little rabbit night light in his hand. His eyes were black and bright as he stood in front of her adorably. Why are you looking for big sister? Bei Yunj chuckled unconsciously and squatted down to look at him. Chapter 140. Is it Momo's little bunny? Yes. Bei Yunj watched as the little guy slipped into her room. He found a power source at the bedside and placed the little bunny by the bed with familiarity. After the power source was connected, the little bunny emitted a gentle white light. Even the atmosphere became inexplicably warm and cute. After seeing his masterpiece, the little fellow looked at Bei Yunj happily and hugged Bei Yunj's leg, acting coquettishly. This way, the little bunny will protect sister on behalf of Momo. Sister won't be afraid. Bei Yunj was almost melted by the little guy's cuteness. She squatted down, hugged the little guy and kissed him. Thank you, Momo. What should I do if Momo doesn't have a little bunny? Sister can't take a child's things. Momo is a man, not a child. Girls will always be children, so sister is a child. After Momo finished speaking in a childish voice, he took the opportunity to kiss Bei Yunj and ran out with a red face. Bei Yunj couldn't help but support her chin with one hand. She looked at the place where Momo had left and smiled until her eyes curved. Did this family learn how to flirt with people from their family? At the corridor. Brother, I've already given the little bunny to sister. Sister won't be afraid anymore. Leaning against the wall, the tall and handsome man with long legs casually hummed in acknowledgement. Then he leaned closer and pinched the little guy's cheeks. Yes, well done. After being praised by his brother, the little guy was even happier. He skipped back to his room. Huashida's slender and good-looking hand flicked the lighter. The light sound was cold. He glanced at the door of the room where the light was weak. His low and lazy laughter made people's hearts ripple in the night. Then he turned and left the long corridor. Late at night. In the hospital. What's going on? What's going on? The hospital was in a state of panic and bustle. It seems that the nurse took the wrong medicine. Old Mr. Chin in the private ward on the 5th floor is currently undergoing emergency treatment. The doctor's expression did not look too good as he explained to the director. How could she take the wrong medicine? Investigate, quickly investigate. The dean roared when he heard this. If something were to happen to old Master Chin in his hospital because of this, wouldn't his future be over? We're already investigating. Old Mr. Chin's family. Do we need to inform them? It was the young doctor's first time encountering such a situation. Of course. Hurry up and go. The dean almost fainted from anger. Yes. It was 3 or 4 in the morning. The Qin couple arrived at the hospital first with Qin Youjiao. Then Qin Lang and Qin Yu rushed over. Qin Yu, who was recording a late-night program, did not even have the time to take off his earpiece. His breathing was chaotic. What's going on? How's Grandpa? Qin Yu asked. Mr. Qin, Mrs. Qin, I'm really sorry. This is our hospital's negligence. The director blamed himself. It's because the nurse in our hospital gave old Mr. Qin the wrong medicine, so, what did you say? Qin Yu's gaze turned cold first. How could such a big hospital make such a mistake? I'm very sorry. This is our hospital's negligence. We will try our best to save Mr. Qin. I hope nothing will happen to him. Qin Yu was silent for a moment. Investigate. Investigate everything clearly. What exactly happened? Okay. The dean was also shocked. But about half an hour later, they found the reason. Chapter 141. Director Mr. Qin, look. The young doctor's expression was ugly as he passed his phone to them. The topic was at the top of the trending searches. Hashtag Qin Lang's anti-fan. Hashtag the reason was that an anti-fan of Qin Lang had hacked into the hospital's security system. He had first changed old Master Qin's medicine, then provoked the hospital's official account, and openly announced it to everyone. He even announced that as long as he was around, Qin Lang could forget about living a good life in the future. There were many such anti-fans overseas, but there was almost no such thing in the country. But now, Qin Lang's eyes turned red, and he could not help gritting his teeth and clenching his fists. This be asterisk starred. If he hated him, then he would attack him. What right did he have to harm his family? Qin Lang, don't think too much. We will investigate this matter properly. Qin Yu patted his shoulder. It's still my fault. Qin Lang took a deep breath. His eyebrows still furrowed and his tone could not hide the self-blame. When Qin Lang first entered the industry, there were even more anti-fans than fans. They all said that Qin Lang had entered the industry with his backing, but in fact, the Qin family had never cared about Qin Lang's matters. It was Qin Lang who slowly stood up. Therefore, Qin Lang had proven himself countless times through competitions and obtained first place in many world-class competitions. But even so, the anti-fans had never acknowledged Qin Lang's ability. In fact, there were many people who acted crazily. It was as if they wanted Qin Lang to disappear from this world. Blame you for what? I have more anti-fans than you. Don't be pretentious here. With that said, Qin Yu could not help but glance at the operating theater where the surgery was ongoing. He took a deep breath unconsciously. Let's wait and see first. The old master will definitely be blessed. As for the rest, go and report it the next day. Okay. When I find out who it is, I will definitely kill him. Qin Lang's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. However, Qin Youjiao, who had been silent by the side, felt a sense of comfort and even strangely happy. Bei Yunj was in the Qin family, and no one could touch her. Wasn't it because she had old Master Qin's support? If something happened to old Master Qin this time, what right did Bei Yunj have to show off in front of her in the Qin family? Not long after, Qin Yojiao regained her senses and realized how scary her thoughts were. However, when she thought about how old Master Qin doted on Bei Yunj, the resentment in her heart rose again. As long as old Master Qin was fair, she wouldn't have to hide outside and stay in a hotel every time she returned to the old residence. She was even worried that others would find out that she was not the biological daughter of the Qin family. Qin Yojiao took a deep breath, her eyes cold. Then she looked at Mrs. Qin and said gently and obediently, "Mom, that person doesn't seem to want to let third brother off. Should we get someone to guard Grandpa?" "That's a hacker. It's useless for him to guard Grandpa." Mr. Qin rubbed his forehead. How could their Qin clan encounter such a thing? "Qin Lang and I will ask around. If we hire someone at a high price, we should be able to contact them." Actually, Qin Yu had no thoughts either. If they didn't catch this anti-fan, they would never know how crazy he was. "Then should we tell Bei Yunj about this?" Qin Yojiao suddenly asked. "She's still young. There's no need. When Grandpa wakes up, let her come and take a look." Mr. Qin knew how good the old master was to Bei Yunj. It was very likely that he would make Bei Yunj nervous. Okay. A dark glint flashed past Qin Yojiao's eyes. Chapter 142. However, the next day, early in the morning, just as the Qin family started to investigate, something happened on the internet. Old Master Qin's medical records were hacked by anti-fans, and the hospital's official account was published online. They even openly provoked Qin Lang. "Yinqing Hospital. Why don't you die? Then I'll let your family off," grin crushed Qin Lang. In an instant, this matter caused a sensation on the internet. At the same time, it angered many fans who couldn't help but scold him online. "Why don't you go and die? You won't even let Grandpa Qin off. You're not an anti-fan, you're a pervert," grin. "Do you think you're disgusting? I'm convinced. Is this something a human would do? Although I'm also an anti-fan of Qin Lang, this wave is too tragic for Qin Lang. Grandpa is even worse. Maybe he's still laughing. The Qin family has been played by him to this extent. If we scold him online, he probably thinks that we're clowns. Thinking of this, I'm even angrier. Brother Lang, don't listen to him. We'll always be here. Protect Grandpa and take care of yourself," crushed Qin Lang. Then, after this incident, the technical department of the social media company immediately informed the vice president and the senior management. However, after the vice president heard this, he only felt that this matter was very ridiculous. He had a look of disbelief. What lunatic? Was he a fool? Someone actually dares to touch the Qin family these days? He didn't know which research institute Bei Yunj was the big boss of. "Vice President, should we interfere in this matter?" the head of the technical department asked carefully. After all, someone who could hack the hospital's security system and even openly provoke the Qin family online was definitely not someone to be trifled with. If they helped the Qin family, this person would turn his attention to them. To them it would be asking for trouble. Yes. Go and delete all the posts about old Master Qin. Don't let any related posts pass. The vice president scolded angrily. "Stupid media. How dare you eat human blood?" The head of the technical department was speechless. "You have the cheek to criticize others? Vice President, you know Bei Yunj?" The head of the technical department immediately remembered that the vice president had asked them to deal with Bei Yunj's post. "How can I be so lucky?" the vice president said faintly. In the living room of the old residence, the atmosphere was silent. After a long time, Qin Lang could not help but lower his head and curse. His 10 fingers scratched his short silver gray hair impatiently as he gritted his teeth. "If this bastard hates me so much, why didn't he come out and stab me?" "Qin Lang, calm down. Grandpa's life is no longer in danger, so he'll be fine." Seeing that Qin Lang's eyes were slightly bruised, Qin Yu reached out and patted his back, comforting him with a frown. "But this beast doesn't intend to let Grandpa go." In the wee hours of the morning, Qin Lang couldn't hold it in any longer. He publicly told the anti-fans on the internet that if they had any problems, they could come at him and not his family. However, the person who did this obviously hated Qin Lang to the core. Early in the morning, he provoked Qin Lang again. "That's strange. I just posted a lawyer's letter on Grandpa's message, and only then were a few marketing accounts willing to delete it. Why are they all gone now? Qin Yu was slightly surprised. However, when Qin Lang heard this, he didn't ask further. He still couldn't lift his spirits. Suddenly, Qin Yujiao said, I just sent a message to a friend of mine. His father is the vice president of the platform. Maybe he helped to delete it. Chapter 143. You're indeed my good daughter. At this time, only you can help. Mrs. Qin was very touched. Even Mr. Qin, who had been deliberately distancing himself from Qin Yujiao recently, had a flash in his eyes and his gaze on Qin Yujiao became gentle. Thank you for your hard work, Jiao Jiao. Qin Yujiao smiled and glanced at Qin Yu and Qin Lang beside her. There's no need to thank family members. However, Dad, Mom, if you want to thank me, you can wait for my friend to come over later and thank him personally. You're such a smart child. Mrs. Qin could not help but laugh and pinch her nose. But it's a good thing that you're here this time. Qin Yujiao smiled as a strange and smug glint flashed past her eyes. So what if Bei Yunj returned to the Qin family? She still couldn't compare to her in anything? As long as her brothers and parents found out that she was the most useful daughter, Bei Yunj would still be abandoned. Soon, a voice suddenly sounded at the door. Is Yujiao here? Hearing the familiar voice, a smile immediately appeared on Qin Yujiao's face. She immediately walked to the door and smiled at the handsome boy. Lin Jr. here. My parents wanted to thank you. Come in quickly. Hearing his goddess say this, Lin Jun immediately felt like he was on cloud 9. However, confusion quickly rose in him. Wait a minute, why was she thanking him? Before Lin Jun could ask clearly, Qin Yujiao pulled him enthusiastically and walked to Mrs. Qin and Mr. Qin. Dad, Mom, this is Lin Jun, Vice President Lin's son. Qin Yujiao's attitude towards Lin Jun was very intimate. She knew that Lin Jun liked her. But if it wasn't for the fact that she could use him this time, she would have ignored Lin Jun's student Lin. Thank you very much this time. You've helped our Qin family a lot, Mrs. Qin said with a gentle and dignified smile. But then Lin Jun, who was still nervous just now, immediately sobered up when he heard Mrs. Qin's words. Wait, Auntie Qin, what do you mean? When did I help you? Stop pretending. I know you did it. If you didn't plead with Vice President Lin, why would my grandfather's posts be deleted? Qin Yujiao said with a smile. Who knew? When Lin Jun heard this, he took a step back and immediately explained. How can this be something that I can control? If my dad had listened to me, I wouldn't have had my allowance deducted for 3 months. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the living room fell into a strange silence. Then what's going on? Mr. Qin was the first to speak. Could it be that someone was secretly helping them? What do you mean what's going on? Isn't there someone in your Qin clan who's especially powerful? Even my dad warned me not to offend your family, and not to provoke people who shouldn't be provoked. Lin Jun was confused. Did this family not know that there was a big boss in their family? Who are you talking about? Qin Yu suddenly asked. Lin Jun. I don't know. My dad won't tell me. He just told me to be smart and not get into trouble all the time. This time everyone in the Qin clan fell silent. Qin Yujiao's face flushed red and her hands clenched into fists. She didn't expect this to have nothing to do with Lin Jun. Oh Yujiao, you don't have to ask me for help. That big boss in your family will definitely be more useful than me if he just says something to my dad. Lin Jun said straightforwardly. However, hearing this, the Qin family was even more confused. Chapter 144. A.M. Computing Institute. Old master, you'll be so happy now. The young man ran towards Zhong Shenglin excitedly. You're the one who's dead. With his hands behind his back, Zhong Shenglin watered the flowers expressionlessly. Something happened to the Qin family. Didn't you always want to know about the big boss of Marcus Computing Institute? This time I don't believe that he won't come out. With that said, the young man told Zhong Shenglin about what had happened to the Qin family. However, Zhong Shenglin slapped the back of his head immediately after hearing this. Are you stupid? At this time old Master Qin is still in bed and you're talking nonsense. The young man was a little dazed from the slap. Then he said aggrievedly, "Isn't that big boss here? What if he was just helping out when he saw injustice last time? Go and contact Bai Yunj quickly and ask her if she needs help." Zhong Shenglin took a deep breath. He really felt that if there were a few more such members, he would be so angry that he would have an epilepsy. Okay. Then I'll ask Miss Pei out immediately. Then in just one morning, that person started to post the personal information of the third son of the Qin family, the Qin couple, and Qin Youjiao online. Although the relevant departments were already investigating, such a technical crime was not so easy to solve no matter which country it was. Besides, this person's goal was obvious. He wanted to drive Qin Lang crazy. Until the afternoon, Bai Yunj happened to be in the cafe, checking the reports sent by the interns in advance. She pressed between her eyebrows, her expression calm and composed. But her fingers that kept tapping on the table exposed her emotions. "Teacher, are you all right?" Tich, who had short brown curly hair, asked carefully. Then teacher, what do you think of what we did?" Jasmine asked excitedly. Bai Yunj's eyelids moved and she thought for a moment before she asked, "Do you want to do another one?" Tich and Jasmine were speechless. Whether it was in her previous life or this life, Bai Yunj had indeed only interacted with the top figures in the computing industry. It was obvious that it was Bai Yunj's first time seeing such a standard of reporting. However, Bai Yunj didn't say much. He just continued, "Let me help you sort out your thoughts first." Tich and Jasmine heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that. Fortunately, they were not asked to change teachers. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing. But then, unexpectedly, Bai Yunj discovered that someone was trying to hack into her computer when she was halfway through her speech. Seeing this, Bai Yunj raised his eyebrows and a trace of interest flashed across his eyes. Wait a moment. After Bai Yunj finished speaking, he did not hang up the call. "Teacher, what happened?" Jasmine was worried. "It's nothing. Someone is trying to access my personal information." Bai Yunj spoke slowly as her slender fingers danced across the keyboard. Her fingers moved so quickly that no one could see them clearly. Tich and Jasmine. Who was it that didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and dared to offend their ancestors? "Teacher, do you want me to help you deal with him? Since he dares to provoke our teacher, I guarantee that he will cry until his life ends." Jasmine asked with a grin. "All right, don't bother with him. Continue with the class." Bai Yunj was not in the mood to bother with him today. After dealing with the person who hacked her computer, she prepared to continue with the class. At this moment, Chapter 145. In the past, when they were teenagers, they also liked to hack into other people's computers to give them a sense of satisfaction. But this was the first time they saw someone solve the problem so easily. Suddenly, Tich and Jasmine remembered that Marcus had proudly said that Bai Yunj had deliberately hacked their website in order to join their computing institute. If it was someone else, Marcus would have already twisted their head off. Sure enough, big shots were always given special treatment wherever they went. Soon, Tich and Jasmine restrained their thoughts and tried their best to keep up with Bai Yunj's teaching ideas. At this moment, a certain young man, who thought that he had successfully hacked into Bai Yunj's computer, smiled smugly. There was nothing worth looking forward to in this Qin family. It was really too easy. Suddenly, the young man did not have time to be smug for long. When he asked for Bai Yunj's personal information, the computer screen went black. This sudden turn of events caused the young man to be unable to react in time. What? After the young man reacted, he immediately typed on the keyboard. 2 hours later, the young man finally solved it with great difficulty. Before he could heave a sigh of relief, he realized that the computer had been implanted with a virus. F***CK? The young man's eyes were red and gloomy. Obviously, he had never encountered such a reverse manipulation. This kind of humiliation was simply strangling his neck and slapping his face. The project guidance ended. Bai Yunj felt very novel at the thought of someone trying to hack her computer information. This kind of thing had never happened in her previous life. Then, just as Bai Yunj collected her thoughts and was about to go back, someone called out to her from behind. Miss Pei. Bei Yunji's beautiful eyes moved. She turned around and saw a young man rushing over. This was the member of the AM Computing Institute that she had seen in school before. Excuse me, what's the matter? Bei Yunji's tone was leisurely, which stunned the young man. Miss Pei, you seem to be very calm. Seeing the young man's surprised expression, Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows. What do you mean? So many things have happened in Miss Pei's family. Why does it seem like she doesn't know anything? The young man looked at her strangely. Bei Yunji's eyebrows twitched unconsciously, but she remembered that old Master Qin was still in the Qin family, so she could only ask, what happened? After hearing this, the young man realized that Bei Yunji really didn't know anything. Then, he remembered the rumor online that Bei Yunji and Mrs. Qin had broken off their relationship, and he seemed to understand the reason behind it. After coming back to his senses, the young man told Bei Yunji what had happened to the Qin family recently. Bei Yunji's eyes flashed with coldness when she talked about how the anti-fans had replaced old Master Qin's medicine, and almost caused him to fall into a critical condition. That, Miss Pei, I'm here to ask if you need any help. This kind of thing is actually not difficult. Before the young man could finish, he heard Bei Yunji say casually, Thank you, Mr. Zhong. I'll visit you when I'm free. I will take care of this matter. After saying that, Bei Yunji thanked the young man again and left. When the young man saw this scene, he opened his mouth and couldn't help but whistle in a sloppy manner. Girls these days are too cool. At the hospital. Chapter 146. Miss, may I know where the director is? At this critical juncture, the nurse was wary of Bei Yunji. Miss, may I know why you're looking for the director? Bei Yunji suddenly laughed when she heard this. She rested her chin on one hand and raised her beautiful eyes. Are you afraid that I'm a bad person? For a moment, the nurse was a little dazed. Before she could react, Bei Yunji reached out and drew circles on the back of the nurse's hand with her index finger. Her eyes were clear and seductive. Don't do that, Mississippi. I won't cause trouble. The director is on the 4th floor. He's usually very busy. Don't let me get scolded. The nurse's heart softened and she said helplessly, Thank you, Mississippi. Bei Yunji's lips curved upwards. She didn't know how the milk candy appeared out of nowhere. She gently placed it in the nurse's hand and walked in. In the director's office, Bei Yunji knocked on the door and walked in. Who are you? The director looked up and couldn't help but frown when he realized that it wasn't a medical staff member. Old Mr. Qin, that's my grandfather, Bei Yunji said unhurriedly. The director's frown eased and his tone became gentler. Miss, the hospital will do our best to take care of your grandfather. Don't worry. I want to take a look at your security system. Bei Yunji interrupted. The director was stunned. After a while, Bei Yunji was already sitting in front of the computer in the control room. The technician beside her couldn't help but look at the director with a complicated expression. He seemed to find this ridiculous. The person who hacked their hospital was obviously a computer expert. What was the director thinking? Why did he bring an 18 or 19-year-old girl here? The technician frowned. Miss Pei, what are you? I don't have to help you change it. Bei Yunji's tone was lazy and emotionless. Even if she didn't enter their system, she could still protect old Mr. Qin. When he heard this, he instinctively shut his mouth and quietly watched Bei Yunji modify the system for about 10 minutes. All right, the system will inform you if there are intruders next time. With that, Bei Yunji walked towards the door. Hearing this, the technician's expression changed. He immediately sat in front of the computer and opened the system. In her previous life, many companies were willing to spend tens of millions to hire Bei Yunji to maintain the security of their systems. At the door of the ward, before Bei Yunji could get close, she saw Qin Youjiao and Cheng Zihuai hugging each other. Like a haunting ghost, Bei Yunji raised her thin eyelids. She was about to walk around the two of them and push open the door of the ward. However, she suddenly heard Qin Youjiao shout, Bei Yunji, how did you know that something had happened to the Qin family? These words automatically excluded Bei Yunji from the Qin family. Bei Yunji snorted lazily. She pressed the doorknob and pushed the door open. From the beginning to the end he ignored Qin Youjiao. This made Qin Youjiao's expression change again and again. Bei Yunxi. Qin Youjiao gritted her teeth. If Cheng Zihuai wasn't here, she definitely wouldn't let Bei Yunj off. This is the first time I've met someone as ignorant, incompetent, and arrogant as her. Cheng Zihuai's tone was disdainful as he said coldly. However, at the thought of Huashidu, who had helped Bei Yunj last time, she felt even more unbalanced. Her pride was slightly hurt. How did she manage to hook up with such a man? Zihuai, why do you think Dad, Mom, and I were pranked by anti-fans? Why is Bei Yunj completely fine? P.S. Even if you don't meet the requirements, you'll still update 5 times a day. You'll update at least 4 times a day and basically at 9 in the evening. Chapter 147. Qin Youjiao asked again. Could this matter be related to Bei Yunj? How is that possible? Cheng Zihuai laughed mockingly. Does she have the ability to do that? Instantly, Qin Youjiao froze and could not refute Cheng Zihuai. She forced a smile. That's true. In the ward, the Qin family was having a discussion. That person said that he will visit Grandpa again at 10 o'clock. Qin Yu's eyes darkened and his arrogant and handsome eyes were filled with a faint coldness. What other good news could there be for this visit? Didn't he just want to do something to old Master Qin again? This time, I'm really afraid that something will happen to Grandpa. Second brother, have you contacted anyone? Qin Lang looked at old Master Qin, who was unconscious not far away. His hands were trembling slightly. Last time, Grandpa was already in a dangerous state. He did not know what this B***starred would do next. No one is willing to take it. But for the past few days, Grandpa's medicine was personally prescribed by the doctor. He should be fine. Qin Yu pursed his lips, his expression a little pale. This was a matter of life and death. Although many people wanted to take the Qin family's huge reward, they were also afraid that if something really happened to old Master Qin, not only would their reputation be ruined, but they would also be punished by the Qin family. After all, this matter had already blown up. Who didn't know how powerful this anti-fan was? If it really doesn't work, I'll go and issue a statement now. Actually, I should have left long ago. A mocking smile appeared on Qin Lang's lips. He picked up his phone again and prepared to publicly leave the industry. Qin Lang, he might not let you off even if you do this. Qin Yu held his hand and a trace of struggle flashed past his eyes. Actually, someone might be able to help us. Who? Qin Lang looked at him. Cheng Zihuai. He's currently interviewing for the A.M. Computing Institute. Perhaps he can help us get in touch. Qin Yu took a deep breath, his voice a little hoarse and his eyes filled with self-mockery and bitterness. In his previous life, their Qin family was ruined and no matter how they begged the Cheng family, they could not get any help. He never thought that he would still have to beg the Cheng family this time. At this moment, Qin Lang also fell into silence after hearing this. His eyes were red. Second brother, since I'm the one who caused this, I'll look for Cheng. Suddenly, a lazy and clear voice interrupted their conversation. Tell the people outside to stay away from my old man. Annoying. After Bei Yunj walked in, he didn't raise his head to look at any of them. Instead, he sat down next to the old man, crossed his legs lazily, and opened his laptop. Gore, why are you here? A trace of surprise flashed past Qin Yu's eyes, before he fell into uneasiness. Would Gore blame him? Did she think that not telling her about this meant that she didn't treat her as family? I miss old master. Bei Yunj glanced at the old man beside her. Seeing that the old man was sleeping as usual, she was relieved. A trace of coldness flashed through her eyes, and a faint smile appeared on her face. In this day and age, everyone was very bold. Bei Yunj hid the emotions in her eyes and leisurely reached out to cover old Master Qin with the blanket. What are you doing here? Mrs. Qin's tone was bad. Mr. Qin frowned and interrupted Mrs. Qin. Gur is the most qualified to come. She's Dad's favorite child. But what's the use of that? Did you hear what Bei Yunj said? She told Zihuai to stay away from the old man. Mrs. Qin laughed coldly. Chapter 148. Even if father is so good to Bei Yunj doesn't care about father's safety. Mother. Inga. The three of them interrupted Mrs. Chin at the same time, their voices filled with disapproval. This scene made Mrs. Chin's eyes widen in disbelief. Then she sneered. Great, now all of you are feeling sorry for Bei Yunj? But am I wrong? She can't compare to Jiao Jiao in anything, and will only cause trouble for the Chin family. As soon as she finished speaking, the smile on Bei Yunj's lips did not change. She was still in a lazy posture. But at this moment, no one expected a weak voice to sound from the bedside. Nonsense. No one can compare to my Gur. At the same time, even Bei Yunj paused. Mrs. Chin and the rest turned to look at old master. Father, you're awake. Mrs. Chin's expression was a little bad. I heard everything you said just now. I just couldn't open my eyes. The old master's tone was still very weak. His face was pale, but his expression was cold. Go out. I have something to say to Gu. Father. Mrs. Chin was a little indignant. Chin Ting, if you can't manage your wife well, take her with you. The old master looked at Mr. Chin, clearly angry. This time, Mrs. Chin had criticized Bei Yunj in front of the old master. It was obvious that she had violated the old master's taboo. Mrs. Chin's face was pale. In the end, she was still taken away by Mr. Chin. Qin Yu and Qin Lang also left consciously. Gur, it's Grandpa's fault. I didn't take good care of you. The old master reached out with a trembling hand, grabbed the back of Bei Yunj's hand, and patted it gently. Why are you saying this? Bei Yunj couldn't help but laugh. I can't be bothered with your parents. The old master's eyes turned red and he muttered to himself. I've never done anything bad in my life. I don't know why my Gu has to suffer such grievances. Grandpa, don't feel wronged. Bei Yunj sensed the change in his grandfather's emotions and immediately comforted him. Grandpa has already signed the agreement. After Grandpa leaves, other than leaving the company to your big brother to manage, my Guer will take 2/3 of the family assets. The rest will be divided among the 3 brats. Grandpa is worried that they will treat you well. Grandpa doesn't trust them. I only trust Guer. This time, Bei Yunj could tell that Grandpa Sheng was secretly leaving her an inheritance. Grandpa, Bei Yunj suddenly said. What happened? I'll make some porridge for you. Are you hungry? The old man said. Why are you eating porridge? I'm talking to you about something serious. Bei Yunj nodded obediently. Then you can continue to sleep. I'll peel an apple. The old man took a deep breath. If it was his grandson, he would have been beaten up. But it just had to be his most beloved granddaughter. Suddenly, Bei Yunj was peeling an apple when her phone rang. Brother? When are you coming back? Huashida's low and magnetic voice sounded. 10:30 at the latest. Brother, just leave the door open for me. Bei Yunj simply put the phone aside and turned on the speaker. She continued to peel the apple. However, she did not notice that the old master had been staring at her. Where is she now? The man asked. She's with my grandfather, accompanying him. Hearing Bei Yunj's words, Huashidu, who was in the office, raised his light-colored eyes. Grandpa, what happened? When Bei Yunj heard this, she happened to glance at the old master. Chapter 149. The old master was speechless. These words were completely treating him like a child. You don't want to eat porridge? Hearing this, Huashida's thin red lips curled up. At this moment, the old master, who had fallen silent, felt that his dignity had been ruined because of his granddaughter. Okay, brother, I'll coax her first. We'll talk when we get back. Give me a call when you're almost back. Huashida glanced at the remaining documents. After he was done, he could go and fetch the little girl home. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Bei Yunj took a bite of the apple and felt the old master's resentful gaze again. Guer, do you like Mr. Hua a lot? Yes, I like him a lot. Bei Yunj did not hesitate. She continued to bite the apple and opened her laptop. This time, the old man didn't know where he got the strength from, but he suddenly got up and closed her computer. Bei Yunj was speechless. Guer, you're still young. You don't have to think about these things now. At the mention of his grandson-in-law, The old master suddenly became energetic. Grandpa, I'm scared of you. Lie down quickly. Bei Yunji's beautiful eyes moved. She laughed again and helped him lie down. I like Brother Shidu, just like how I like Grandpa. Bei Yunji smiled. Before the old master could relax, she heard her say, however, I do think that older brother is very good. For a moment, the old master could not refute. He said that she would meet someone better in the future, but he was not confident that he could find someone better than Hoshidu. However, he did not agree to let his granddaughter be abducted by someone else. In the control room, the technician looked at the time. It was only 8:30 p.m. He was about to watch a drama when the security system suddenly popped up a reminder. Even the alarm sounded. Again. The technician's face turned pale. When he came back to his senses, he realized that the system that the girl had modified would really find the intruder. No, I have to get the director to look for her. The technician muttered and ran out of the control room. He could not deal with this intruder at all. He could only find that girl quickly and let her deal with it. However, what the technician hadn't expected was that the invader's mental state had also collapsed. In the internet cafe, in front of the computer screen, a sickly pale face was almost distorted. Why can't we find it? His computer was infected with a virus, and he still couldn't get rid of it. He could only come to the internet cafe to attack the hospital's system. However, he couldn't find a single word of the information that he could easily find last time. Who did it? The young man clenched his teeth and sneered. Het, do you think I have no other choice? You're underestimating me. Today he had to send old Master Qin on his way. Thinking of this, the young man's heart suddenly surged with pleasure and excitement. His expression was faintly excited as his fingers kept tapping on the keyboard. But at this moment, in the ward, lines of code appeared on Bei Yunji's computer screen. Seeing this, Bei Yunji sneered, and his eyes became more and more indifferent. She knew that this person would not necessarily keep his word. But very good. He could settle the score together with the previous one. Grandpa watched the television for a while. Bei Yunji sat by the window, her eyes bright and unruly. At the same time, she was controlling the computer. Chapter 150. The young man originally wanted to use the equipment in the hospital ward to interfere with old Master Qin's treatment and monitoring. However, the more he hacked into it, the more he felt that it was strange. What was going on? Although he had hacked into another system, it was not to the extent that he could do it unimpeded. No, this situation was too smooth. Immediately, the young man inexplicably recalled the person who had hacked into Bei Yunji's computer in the afternoon, and his scalp went numb. Impossible. It's an illusion. How capable can a daughter who hasn't been valued for more than 10 years be? The young man comforted himself. It was because he was careless that someone had taken advantage of the opportunity to get the virus into his computer. How old was the daughter of the Qin family, who was treated as a joke? She might not even have graduated from high school. How could she have done it? The young man thought of this and felt much more relieved. However, he did not expect that his ferocious face and the words he had said had been completely displayed on Bei Yunji's screen. After Bei Yunji turned on the recording and adjusted her earpiece, she heard him cursing Qin Lang nonstop. Along with everyone in the Qin family, he was cursing. A bunch of trash and brainless fans. Do you really think you can do anything to me? The young man kept sneering and said in a disdainful tone, I'll see how Qin Lang will have the face to appear in the esports scene after this old man is dead. Other than Qin Lang, one could feel from his words that the person he hated the most was Bei Yunji. Bei Yunji. The young man found Bei Yunji's information on the internet, and could not help but laugh out loud. He mocked. I thought she was very powerful, but it turns out that she's just a high school student. Qin Lang's sister is not a good person either. After I'm done with Qin Lang, you'll be next. This was the first time Bei Yunji had heard someone talk so much to himself. In less than 3 minutes, all the evidence was gathered. There was no difficulty at all. Bei Yunji laughed lazily, made a copy of the recording, and sent it to the office. Then, she adjusted her earpiece and clicked on the voice message. Her tone was lazy and presumptuous. Are you done? Then it's my turn to settle the score. Suddenly, the young man heard an unfamiliar female voice coming from his earpiece. His body stiffened. When he came back to his senses, he immediately asked, "Who are you? Why are you asking so many questions?" Bei Yunj laughed carelessly and said slowly, "You'll make a lot of new friends in prison in the future." Hearing this, the young man's face turned green and red, and he sneered. "Heh, do you think you can catch me just because you can talk to me? What wishful thinking." After saying this, he leaned against the chair in a carefree manner, without any intention of escaping. His appearance was even more arrogant. It was as if he felt that no one would be able to find his whereabouts. Don't tell me you're also a die-hard fan of Qin Lang? Clearly, his strength was only average, and he relied on his face to make a living. If he wants to blame someone, he can only blame himself. The young man said sarcastically, "Really? Your worldview is quite disgusting." As Bei Yunj chatted, he leisurely locked onto the young man's location. Not far from the hospital, there was an internet cafe about 3 kilometers away. At this moment, before Bei Yunj could make up her mind, she heard the young man laugh again. He said contemptuously and proudly, "So what? You die-hard fans, no matter how much you scold me online, it didn't make me lose a piece of flesh. On the other hand, Qin Lang and that old thing had a hard time in the hospital last night, right?" Bei Yunj licked her lips and laughed as well. Chapter 151. You're right. Bei Yunj's lazy eyes were bright and high-spirited. "However, I'm not Qin Lang's fan." Then, before the young man could react, he heard her laugh slowly. "So they can't make you lose a piece of meat, but I can." The moment she finished speaking, Bei Yunj closed her laptop and walked out. "Grandpa, get someone outside to buy you whatever you want to eat. I still have something on." With that said, she disappeared. At this moment, the director, who was walking in anxiously, saw Bei Yunj and his eyes lit up. However, before he could speak, Bei Yunj brushed past him quickly with an inexplicable coldness. Where is she going? When the technician regained his senses, his scalp turned numb. Why did she look like she was going to fight? Quick, 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 go after her. What will happen to the old master if she leaves? The director pushed him away anxiously and started to pace back and forth like ants on a hot pan. But then he suddenly heard Cheng Zihuai's voice. "Mr. Zhong, why are you here?" The director turned around and found that the old man in a formal suit in the distance looked a little familiar. "Old Master Qin, is this the ward?" Zhong Shenglin adjusted his tie and asked. "Yes." Cheng Zihuai was indeed surprised. He had contacted the people in the A.M. Institute and said that something had happened to the Qin family, and they might need the help of the Computing Institute. However, he did not expect that the people in the institute would really be willing to help. And the person who came was someone like Old Master Zhong. "Can I go in?" Zhong Shenglin was a little uneasy. The young man beside him almost rolled his eyes. This was Miss Pei's grandfather, not that big shot's grandfather back then. Was Old Master Zhong muddle-headed? Of course. Mrs. Qin, who had been standing beside him, was also full of smiles. "You must be Old Master Zhong Shenglin. I really didn't expect you to come and see my father-in-law. I really have to thank Zihuai for all of this." Similarly, Mrs. Qin also looked at Qin Yu and the rest with a confident smile. So what if Old Master Qin dotes on Bei Yunj? But if it weren't for Jiao Jiao, would Cheng Zihuai have been able to put in a good word for them and invite Mr. Zhong Shenglin? "What?" Zhong Shenglin frowned and said bluntly, "I'm here because of Miss Pei." In an instant, Mrs. Qin's smile froze and Qin Youjiao's sweet expression almost fell. Cheng Zihuai's entire body froze as he suddenly raised his head to look at Zhong Shenglin. His handsome face was ashen. Did Mr. Zhong come for Bei Yunj? He was the #1 computer expert in the country. Usually, other than in the news, he could only be seen. At other times, even wealthy families like them would not be able to establish a relationship with someone like Elder Zhong. After all, this was a person under the protection of the country. Even abroad, many big countries wanted to poach Old Master Zhong. Are you joking? Mrs. Qin forced herself to ask. Zhong Shenglin glanced at Mrs. Qin unhappily. She was the matriarch of a wealthy family after all. Why didn't she think before speaking? I heard that something happened to Miss Pei's family, so I specially came to visit. Zhong Shenglin said expressionlessly. I wonder if Miss Pei is here? This time Mrs. Qin's heart turned cold and she took 2 steps back unconsciously. How was that possible? How did Bei Yunj know someone like old Master Zhong? She's not here. Chapter 152. Mrs. Qin added, she's already gone. The Qin family is nothing to her. It's old Master's fortune that she came to see him. Mum. Qin Yu and Qin Lang's eyes turned cold as they interrupted her almost in unison. How could they not hear the sarcasm in Mrs. Qin's words? She was almost telling everyone that Bei Yunj was an unfilial ingrate. Elder Zhong actually Qin Yu was about to explain when he was interrupted by Zhong Shenglin. He chuckled. It's indeed your Qin family's fortune to have her. Instantly, everyone fell silent. They even suspected that Zhong Shenglin was saying this on purpose to insult Mrs. Qin. However, Elder Zhong was famous for being cold and arrogant and difficult to approach. Why would he protect Bei Yunj? Then, just as everyone was feeling strange and was about to ask again, the dean interrupted them. Mr. Zhong. The person who harmed old Master Qin yesterday is here again. Can you help old Master Qin? The dean's tone was anxious, but he was nervous. Would Zhong Shenglin agree? However, he did not expect Zhong Shenglin to pull the young man beside him and throw him into the ward. Brat, if anything happens to old Master Qin, pack your things and go to your beloved Marcus. The young man was speechless. In order to recruit the big boss beside Bei Yunj, this old man was really unscrupulous. Those who did not know better would think that old Master Qin was this old man's sworn brother. The young man was indignant, but he could only go to the nearby office reluctantly and start to check if there were any intruders. However, a few minutes later, he slammed his earphones down. This F*King security system is almost better than the security system we have. Let me see it. Let me see who can hack in. The young man could not help but lose his temper. How dare this system come out and act pitiful? What did you say? Zhong Shenglin was stunned for a moment, but he quickly thought of the person who helped Bei Yunj. Him again. A dark look flashed across Zhong Shenglin's eyes. His urge to steal the girl from him grew stronger. How could such a talent be given to that old guy Marcus? That's too ruthless. It would probably take me a few months to crack this security system. The young man couldn't help but sigh. Moreover, as long as there's an invasion, it can lock onto all directions. What kind of immortal big shot would do something like this? This level of security was something that many listed companies could not achieve, even if they spent tens of millions every year. How could this be? Who would do such a thing for our Qin family? Mother Qin muttered. From the young man's words, it could be seen that this person's level was not inferior to the A.M. Computing Institute. But how could the Qin family know such a person? However, at this moment, the director suddenly remembered that Bei Yunj had casually modified the scene in the control room for more than 10 minutes. Actually, she is. After the dean came back to his senses, he wanted to say something, but in the end he hesitated. He suddenly remembered that Bei Yunj had severed ties with Mother Qin and fell out with the Qin family. If he spoke too much, would Bei Yunj find trouble with him? The dean suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He did not dare to provoke this big boss in the computing field. Speak less and you'll be safe. Who is it? Chapter 153. Actually, it doesn't matter who she is. The director pretended not to see Zhong Shenglin's gaze and forced a smile. A few seconds later, as expected, Zhong Shenglin smiled, but it made people's hair stand on end. That's right. You've created a system that's worth more than tens of millions. You've got nothing to lose. I haven't gotten anything yet. When the director heard this, his legs almost went weak. The young man was speechless. It was starting. He was starting again. At this moment, he really suspected that when Zhong Shenglin found that big shot, he might even be willing to sell the A.M. Computing Institute to support that big shot. After that, just as the atmosphere was at its most tense, Zhong Shenglin suddenly laughed. However, I seem to know who this person is. At this point, Zhong Shenglin glanced at the Qin family meaningfully. In the end, his gaze stopped on Mother Qin and he looked away. Some blessings are indeed bestowed by the heavens. However, there will always be people who don't know how to appreciate it and dare to push everything away. With that said, Zhong Shenglin sneered and couldn't be bothered to continue. Whether the Qin family had the fortune to rise to the top in one step depended on whether they had brains. After all, this was Bei Yunji's family matter. Zhong Shenglin was tactful and knew that he shouldn't interfere at this time. Otherwise, if he did anything unnecessary, it would be annoying. At the thought of this, Zhong Shenglin was in a good mood. He felt that the day when he could poach her was not far away. Alright, let's go and see old Master Qin. Bei Yunji was willing to come to the hospital to help change the system. This meant that old Master Qin had a high status in her heart. At the thought of this, Zhong Shenglin felt inexplicably jealous. Why didn't he have a biological granddaughter like Bei Yunji? Bei Yunji was only 19 years old. She already had such a level. In the future, when she grew up, would there be any room for others to surpass her? Zhong Shenglin felt a lingering fear. He felt that it was a good thing that he had discovered Bei Yunji's existence in time. Otherwise, wouldn't our nation have benefited? At the internet cafe, the young man walked out with an unpleasant expression. He had been busy for 2 hours tonight, but he hadn't accomplished anything. Thinking of this, the young man's expression darkened, and he gnashed his teeth. Who is it that's ruining my plans? If he found out, he would never let that person off. The young man took a deep breath and decided to wait for the next opportunity. Since no one could find him, he would always have a chance to kill Qin Lang's family. You want to catch me? Why don't you take a look at yourself? The young man picked up the pebble beside his feet, looking vile and arrogant. But who would have thought that a soft chuckle could be heard not far away? You're pretty arrogant, aren't you? In an instant, the young man's body stiffened and chilled. He subconsciously raised his head to look. Under the streetlight, a girl with lazy and bright eyes was leaning lazily against the wall. Her gaze was wanton and playful. Who are you? The young man felt that he looked familiar, but he couldn't recall who he was. But soon, Bei Yunji made him remember. She took a few steps forward. Before the young man could react, she suddenly grabbed his collar and yanked. He had no choice but to bend down and look into the pair of beautiful and cold eyes in front of him. I really can't bear to send you in just like that. She reached out again and patted his face gently, but the chill rose from his tailbone to the back of his head. So, aren't I here to settle the score with you first? Suddenly, the young man recognized this familiar voice and this face. Chapter 154. How could it be her? All the rationality in the young man's mind exploded. It was actually Bei Yunji. The person he was talking to just now was Bei Yunji. Bei Yunji, what are you trying to do? The young man snapped out of his daze and questioned her calmly. However, Bei Yunji only responded with a light laugh. She didn't seem to care, but her slender and fair hand suddenly grabbed the young man's collar and dragged him to the side of the alley. The young man, whose face was red from being strangled, staggered but couldn't break free at all. After the numbness in his scalp, a layer of fear surged in front of him. Bei Yunji, Bei. Suddenly, before the young man could finish speaking, the girl's knee hit his abdomen hard. Ah! The young man howled in pain and his entire body bent over, trembling. The intolerable pain made him hold his abdomen and kneel on the ground. Bei Yunji let go of her hand and looked down at him with her beautiful eyes. Is it very painful? My grandfather is in a lot of pain in the operating room too. She reached out again and lifted his chin. She slowly glanced at his fearful and painful expression. The corners of her lips curled up, but her tone sent chills down his spine. So, you have to bear with the pain now. As soon as she finished speaking, the young man was thrown to the right wall again. His internal organs were in so much pain that the veins on his forehead were popping out. He couldn't stand properly and fell to the ground. The young man's vision was a little blurry, But when he saw Bei Yunj approaching him again, he was only left with fear and spoke incoherently. Bei Yunj, don't. I didn't mean to target you. It's Qin Lang's fault. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have. Before the young man could finish speaking, the left side of his face was punched hard again, and the crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard. Are you trying to reason with me at a time like this? Bei Yunj moved her wrist and sneered again, but her eyes were cold. Last night, if something had really happened to the old man, she couldn't guarantee that this person would still be alive to be sent to the police station. Bei Yunj glanced at the young man lying on the ground, then looked at the time and smiled lazily. There's still more than half an hour. Let's continue to settle our accounts. Bei Yunj, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. You let me go. Aw. A sharp and tragic howl rang out, making one's scalp go numb in the night. Half an hour later, in the depths of the alley, the person lying on the ground was almost unrecognizable. He looked like he was on his last breath. The filthy blood on the ground meandered, making people want to scream at the sight of it. But at this moment, as for the girl beside him, there was no change in her beautiful face. Only the blood on her hand was dripping down drop by drop. Hence, this was the scene that the first person who accidentally bumped into them saw. Yu Manran was wearing a mask and sunglasses. When she heard the screams, she couldn't help but walk over. But she didn't expect to meet Bei Yunj here. Miss Pei. Yu Manran almost dropped the phone she was holding. The thought of calling the police immediately disappeared. However, when Bei Yunj turned around and looked at her, Yu Manran realized how cold Bei Yunj's gaze was. Even her usual laziness was nowhere to be seen. Miss Pei, how did you? Yu Manran was about to ask when she heard the sound of the police car. She was instantly flustered. Chapter 155. I know. Bei Yunj slowly wiped the blood off her hands. I was the one who called the police. These words stunned Yu Manran. Then, the first thought that flashed through his mind was that Bei Yunj had gone crazy. How could she call the police to arrest herself? However, following this, even Yu Manran did not expect that her first reaction would be to grab Bei Yunj's hand and run out. Before Bei Yunj could regain her senses, Yu Manran had already dragged her halfway down the street. In the end, the two of them entered a bar with many people watching them. After feeling that their surroundings were safe, Yu Manran let go of Bei Yunj's hand and started to gasp for breath. Okay, everything is fine now. Why are you here? This was the first time Bei Yunj had taken the initiative to ask about her. My family introduced me to a blind date. As a public figure, of course I can't go to places where people of the opposite sex can easily take photos. As soon as Yu Manran finished speaking, he suddenly remembered that when she had first met Bei Yunj, there had been a same-sex scandal the next day. #popular singer Yu Manran secretly meeting a same-sex partner at a bar in the middle of the night. When news like this was exposed, it would be very easy for an ordinary artist's popularity to plummet. But who would have thought that when the netizens saw Bei Yunj's blurry figure, they would already at her and ask if Bei Yunj could debut together with her. In fact, just an hour after the news was exposed, the number of her fans had increased by a few million. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't even dare to think about it. However, Yu Manran still got someone to delete these news in the end. She did not want to affect Bei Yunj's normal life. It's not very good for a female artist to come to a bar, Bei Yunj said casually. Yu Manran couldn't help but laugh. Do you also think that a female artist should accept those rules and regulations? Look at how many people are staring at you. Bei Yunj was right. An artist with her looks would be the most eye-catching in a bar. If it was a bar where crooks mixed in with honest folk, some of the more daring ones might do something stupid if they saw that Yu Manran did not bring any bodyguards with him. Then don't you have a lot of people? Yu Manran was halfway through his words when he suddenly remembered what Bei Yunj had just done in the deep alley. To Bei Yunj there was no danger at all. Sure, but don't drink too much. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she felt the phone in her pocket vibrate. She glanced at the caller ID and subconsciously picked it up. But then, she suddenly remembered that she was in a bar. Previously, she had told Huashiru that she was in the hospital. Bei Yunj. Very soon. In the next moment, Bae Yunj clearly heard the man's low and magnetic voice in the noisy and impetuous atmosphere. It was inexplicably reassuring. "Where are you?" Bae Yunj was about to leave when she caught a glimpse of many people looking at her, and Yu Manran from the corner of her eye. Immediately, she pulled Yu Manran's hand and walked out of the bar. Then, she gave Hwashidu the address of the street intersection. After hanging up the phone, Sung-soo, who was driving, felt the strange silence in the atmosphere and could not help but laugh dryly. Maybe Miss Pei is listening to people singing on the streets. This street art enthusiast. Hwashida's casual gaze made Sung-soo shut up. Miss Pei was already 19 years old. Wasn't it normal for her to go to a bar? Chapter 156. After feeling the surrounding atmosphere turn even colder, Sung-soo only dared to minimize his presence. Master Du wouldn't go over to teach her a lesson, right? Sung-soo was silently worried for Bae Yunj. At this moment, Bae Yunj asked Yu Manran to call her manager. After about 10 minutes, the manager got out of the car anxiously. "I say, ancestor, can't you be a little more obedient? Why did you suddenly come to such a place?" With that said, the manager finally noticed Bae Yunj beside her. "This is..." Then, before Yu Manran could introduce her, the manager's eyes suddenly lit up. "Your Manman's rumored boyfriend?" She was rich. Wasn't Manman's rumored boyfriend too good-looking? If she was in the entertainment industry, she would definitely become popular. Bae Yunj glanced at the manager, then at Yu Manran. "Yunj, it was that time when our bar was photographed and the paparazzi posted it online. However, I suppressed the news that day." Yu Manran explained, afraid that Bae Yunj would misunderstand. You can leave." Bae Yunj nodded, not too bothered. "Yunj, are you angry?" Yu Manran was a little careful. No. Bae Yunj seemed to have recalled something. She smirked and reached out lazily to tidy Yu Manran's hair. "Let's go." Yu Manran's face inexplicably heated up. He nodded and his voice became softer. "Okay, then I'll get going first." Seeing this scene, the manager almost wondered if this was still Yu Manran. She could still see Sister Man blushing. However, until they got into the car, the manager suddenly remembered. "Wait a minute. What's the name of the person who composed the song for you?" "It's her. Isn't she pretty?" The manager was speechless. For a moment, she didn't know if she should poach someone to compose a song or debut. "Don't think about it. She doesn't like the entertainment industry. However, if she's willing, I'll definitely do everything I can to help her reach the top. But she may not need it." Yu Manran's fangirl look made the manager's eyelids twitch. She was a popular B-lister after all. Had she lost all her pride as a female celebrity? On the streets, it was quiet all around. Bae Yunj leaned against the lamppost and took the initiative to open the headlines, which she rarely did. Sure enough, she saw the entry #Chinlang's anti-fans arrested hashtag. The comments section was also filled with heated discussions. This kind of rampant lawless person who uses technology should be jailed for a few more years. Grin, although. But I heard that when this person was captured, his breathing was almost broken. The first thing the investigators did was not to bring him back to the police station but to the hospital. Ha 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 ha, who did it? How ruthless. However, this person probably didn't expect that he would have to go to the hospital again after he was admitted to the hospital. Although my heart aches a little, I still want to say that the heavenly Tao is good at reincarnation. If Grandpa Chin hadn't been so lucky, he might have been dead by now. Smile. It's good that you caught him. I hope you can bring him to the psychiatrist. Perhaps it was because the anti-fans were caught too quickly that many people on the internet could not help but sigh at the efficiency of the police station. But in fact, they were also investigating who sent them the anonymous message. They gave them all the evidence and location. Such a person was either one of the few people from the A.M. Computing Institute or some hidden big shot. However, Chapter 157. When she called him just now, Bae Yunj did not think that Hwashidu could not hear her in the noisy atmosphere of the bar. For the first time, She suddenly felt like she had been caught doing something wrong. Bae-yeonja's eyebrows twitched. Suddenly she heard a meow. In the blink of an eye, she saw a little orange cat sitting on the street, looking pitiful. Seeing this, Bae-yeonj suddenly smiled and sat beside the little orange cat. She rested her chin on one hand and sat by the roadside. They both looked pitiful. The little orange cat probably did not expect that someone would imitate it and pretend to be pitiful. It was instantly furious. It howled and ran away with its tail wagging. How petty! Bae-yeonj laughed lazily. However, she was thinking in her heart that when Hwashidu saw her sitting here later, he probably would not teach her a lesson on the street, right? Bae-yeonj, who had always been very experienced and was very good at manipulating the psychology of elders, could also tell that Hwashidu was not that easy to coax. Unknowingly, Bae-yeonj did not notice that a car had stopped not far away. Someone also walked over. A handsome and arrogant man was dressed in a well-ironed black suit. His facial features were well-defined and his aura was ascetic. However, the corners of his eyes were curled up and inexplicably seductive. He subconsciously stopped in his tracks and looked at the girl sitting by the roadside not far away. He did not know what she was thinking. After a while, Bae-yeonj turned her face and rubbed her red eyes. She still looked like she wanted to sleep but could not. Seeing this, most of the man's anger dissipated. Hwashidu subconsciously tugged at his tie. Even 2 buttons of the white shirt inside were unbuttoned. His casual and frivolous posture was inexplicably lustful and sexy. In the next moment, Hwashidu walked towards Bae-yeonj and slowly took off his suit with one hand. Then, before Bae-yeonj could mentally prepare herself, her vision suddenly turned pitch black. A faint and pleasant cold fragrance floated around. Brother? As soon as Bae-yeonj finished speaking, someone suddenly went around her knees and hugged her. Shortly after, Bae-yeonj instinctively wrapped her arms around the man's neck and pulled down the suit covering her head. As expected, the person she saw was Hwashidu. Hwashidu's expression was indifferent. He did not look at her, but his light and lazy magnetic voice tickled her ears. Cover your legs. Bae-yeonj didn't have time to think it was strange. She lowered her head and saw the bloodstains on her blouse. It seemed to have been left by her leg accidentally. He pondered for a moment. Bae-yeonj said frankly, "Brother, this blood doesn't belong to me." Hearing this, Hwashidu finally lowered his head and glanced at her indifferently. However, before Hwashidu could speak, Bae-yeonj's eyes curved and she said, "Brother, you won't suddenly put me down halfway, right?" Looking at this pair of clear and obedient eyes, there shouldn't be anyone who could harden their heart. Back in the car. "Brother, is there anything you want to ask me?" Bae-yeonj leaned closer to Hwashidu and asked. When Seung-soo, who was in front, saw that Bae-yeonj was carried over by Hwashidu, his heart could not calm down for a long time. Wasn't Master Du being too biased? Compared to little young Master, what kind of treatment was Miss Pei receiving? At this moment, Hwashidu's slender and well-defined hand casually tapped Bae-yeonj's forehead, not letting her continue to lean over. His tone was lazy, but it inexplicably made one's heart itch. Brother's anger hasn't subsided yet. Behave yourself. Chapter 158. Bae-yeonj looked up with her clear eyes and suddenly curled up her beautiful eyes. She rubbed her head against his cold fingers. Her clear voice made one's heart itch. "Don't, Brother Shidu." For a moment, the man's fingertips trembled slightly. His eyes were so dark that they could not be seen clearly. "Don't act coquettishly with me." Hwashidu retracted his gaze and retracted his hand. He subconsciously played with the silver lighter. This little fellow knew very well that as long as she acted coquettishly, he would not be able to do anything to her. "Then don't ignore me, brother." The smile in Bae-yeonj's eyes did not diminish. Her eyes became brighter, and she started to move closer to Hwashidu again. This time, Hwashidu pretended not to see and let her do as she pleased. Meanwhile, Seung-soo, who was secretly observing the situation behind, was heartbroken. This Miss Pei was too good at coaxing Master Du. Was she the reincarnation of a vixen? Then Bae-yeonj was also talking to herself, not caring that there were other people around. What Sung Soo saw was the little vixen staring at their master do brazenly. Words of coaxing came out of her mouth as soon as she opened it. After a while, Sung Soo regained his senses and could not help but sigh. It was over. Master Du would definitely fall. Who could withstand this? After getting out of the car, Hwashidu saw that the road ahead was a little dark. He slowed down and waited for the young lady behind to approach. When they returned to the living room, Aunt Meow came up to them. "Miss Sir, you're finally back. I've already prepared supper. Do you want to eat together?" "No need. I'll go upstairs first to settle some company matters." Hwashidu casually took off his tie and prepared to go upstairs. Seeing this, Aunt Meow immediately pulled Bei Yunj enthusiastically. "Miss, try it. Mr. Ho really likes Miss Pei. In the past, Mr. Ho rarely went home to work." Aunt Meow could not stop smiling. She looked like a couple fan online. "Aunt Meow, didn't you realize that brother is angry with me?" Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and looked at the man's back view. "Is he? 20 minutes ago, Sir called me to prepare supper for you," Aunt Meow said. Upon hearing this, Bei Yunj paused for a moment. She turned around and asked, "Auntie Meow, can I bring the supper upstairs and eat with my brother?" "Sure, I'll go get a tray so that Miss Pei can bring it upstairs." Aunt Meow happily patted Bei Yunj's hand and hurried back to the kitchen. Seeing this, Bei Yunj was not surprised by Auntie Meow's enthusiasm. She sat on the sofa and thought about Qin Lang's anti-fans. That person didn't seem to hate Qin Lang all of a sudden. Instead, he seemed to have hated Qin Lang for a long time. But if that was the case, why didn't he make a move earlier? Bei Yunj's fingers kept tapping on the table. Her gaze was serene, and the corners of her lips gradually curled up. Then who was it that was controlling the situation from behind? Soon, Bei Yunj knocked on the door of the study with a tray in one hand. When she heard the sound inside, she walked in. Hwashidu looked up. Obviously, he did not expect Bei Yunj to come over. She was still carrying 2 sets of supper. "Brother, you haven't eaten yet, right?" Bei Yunj placed the tray on the table, took a chair, and sat opposite Hwashidu. She cupped her cheeks with both hands and smiled. "Let's eat first. It's not too late to work after." Hwashidu did not expect Bei Yunj to come up to persuade him to eat dinner. Chapter 159. The little girl still had some conscience. Hwashidu put down his pen and looked at Bei Yunj. "Is the bar fun?" Hwashidu asked in a light tone. "Not really." Bei Yunj was halfway through her supper when she heard this question, and almost choked. Seeing this, Hwashidu retracted his gaze and smiled silently. 20 minutes later, the two of them finished their supper quietly. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. After Aunt Meow pushed the door open, she smiled meaningfully and glanced at the two of them. "Sir, miss, I'll take the cutlery away first." "Okay," Hwashidu replied nonchalantly. After Aunt Meow left, his gaze landed on Bei Yunj, who did not intend to leave. "Brother, don't be angry. I know I'm wrong." Bei Yunj saw that the noble and handsome man in front of her did not seem to be moved, so she added, "In the future, I will study hard." Unexpectedly, the man's thin red lips curled up and his half-smiling voice sounded in a low voice. "Really? Really?" Bei Yunj did not even blink. But the next moment, Hwashidu suddenly stood up and walked towards the door with his long legs that were overly abstinent under his black suit pants. Coincidentally, Assistant Sung went to buy a stack of college entrance examination exercises for you last time. "I'll get them for you." Hearing this, Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes twitched. She immediately stood up and followed behind Hwashidu. "Brother, it's already night time." "It's okay, I'll accompany you." The corners of Hwashidu's eyes curled up, mixed with an ambiguous gentleness. Just like his lazy and magnetic voice, it was thin and seductive. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the corners of Bei Yunj's mouth twitched. She silently remembered Sung Soo. Just as Hwashidu was about to open the door, Bei Yunj tugged at his sleeve and said tactfully, "Brother, it's better for us to be reasonable." "Is that so? Then I'll listen." Hwashidu lifted his thin eyelids and leaned against the wall loosely. His posture was light and playful. Under the light, his pair of cold, pale-colored eyes were filled with deep and shallow light as he stared straight at her. The man's indifferent and abstinent appearance was both bad and lustful. Bae-yeon organized her thoughts. Brother, I'm already an adult. Actually, before he could finish his sentence, suddenly, Bae-yeon heard a soft sound. And then somehow, the room fell into darkness. She subconsciously moved closer to Hwashidu, but unexpectedly, she bumped into a warm and firm chest. Through the thin shirt, she could still feel the man's hot and beating heart. A short while later, Bae-yeon heard him chuckle in a low voice. Even though she was in the dark, she could imagine his lazy and intimate posture at this moment, and his unhurried manner as he spoke. You still want to reason with your brother? Bae-yeon. What a childish and unreasonable man. Brother, turn on the lights. Bae-yeon moved away slightly, but her hand was still tightly holding onto Hwashidu's sleeve. Big brother is here. What are you afraid of? Hwashidu stretched out his hand lazily and pinched the back of her neck teasingly. Bae-yeon almost did not notice that when Hwashidu was around, she was not as uneasy and anxious as before. The next moment, Hwashidu still took care of the little girl's emotions. He turned on the lights and pinched her face. Next time, don't let your brother catch you going to the bar again. Also, why did you fight? After the light in front of Bae-yeon's eyes returned to normal, she let go of the man's sleeve. Chapter 160. She let go of Hwashidu's sleeve and looked elsewhere. Not even a fight. For some reason, Bae-yeon already felt that Hwashidu had discovered that she was afraid of the dark. However, before Bae-yeon could think further, the man beside her reached out and messed up her hair. Sure, but brother will be worried. Bae-yeon, whose hair was messy, was speechless. I don't know what made my little girl so angry. The man's deep and melodious voice rolled along with the sexy tip of his throat and overflowed. Hwashidu could tell that Bae-yeon was very concerned about old Master Chin. The person who could make her come out in the middle of the night and secretly fight obviously made the little girl very unhappy. He touched someone very important to me. Bae-yeon looked up and smiled at Hwashidu. Just like brother. Hearing this, Hwashidu's unwavering gaze landed on Bae-yeon. He chuckled softly and leaned closer to her. Is my union so powerful? The man's hoarse and magnetic voice was long and lazy, but it made people blush and their hearts beat faster. Then from now on, Union has to protect brother well. Bae-yeon reacted. There was still someone who dared to provoke him. However, before that, Union has to tell me everything. He held Bae-yeon's hand and seemed to be coaxing her casually. Union, don't be afraid. Brother will be afraid. Bae-yeon paused and looked at the man in front of her. Suddenly, she wanted to ask a very stupid question. Brother, why are you so good to me? Bae-yeon blurted out. A moment later, she inadvertently met his eyes and her gaze seemed to burn. His eyes were dark, but after a while, his lips curled up lightly. Because brother's Union should get whatever she wants. The next day, Bae-yeon had just received a call from the form teacher to ask about her. After taking leave, she drove to the hospital again. Unexpectedly, the moment she pushed open the door, she saw Zhong Shenglin chatting with the old master. Guh. Why are you here so early? The old man's eyes lit up, and his tone became gentler. Bae-yeon nodded and put the porridge she had prepared on the table. Grandpa, have you eaten? Not yet. The old man said happily. When Zhong Shenglin heard that, he silently glanced at the porridge box that the old man had thrown away in the trash can. Then Grandpa, try it. The taste of this congee is quite good. Bae-yeon opened the porridge box for the old man and handed him a pair of chopsticks. Then he looked at Zhong Shenglin. Mr. Zhong, why are you here? I've been here for a long time. Zhong Shenglin's eyes were filled with grief. It had to be said that Zhong Shenglin felt sour in his heart. If he had such a granddaughter, he would treat her like a princess. How could he bear to let her buy food for him? I have some matters to discuss with Miss Pei in private, Zhong Shenglin added. Hearing this, Bae-yeon's fingers paused for a moment before she said casually, okay. In the garden downstairs, Miss Pei's aptitude is amazing. Before this, I really didn't expect that the headlines would be related to Miss Pei. I think Mr. Zhong should know that I have already signed a contract with Marcus. Bei Yunj didn't hesitate. When Zhong Shenglin heard Bei Yunj admit it personally, his heart was still in turmoil. She was only 19 years old. Marcus had said that the main project of their computing institute this year was Bei Yunj, with others as support. Chapter 161. After Zhong Shenglin came back to his senses, he quickly smiled again. Obviously, he had come prepared this time. Miss Pei, don't you like the research institute in our country? Zhong Shenglin asked with a smile. The spirit of the contract. The corners of Pei Yunj's lips curled up as she turned to look at him, her eyes bright. Actually, I also considered the A.M. Computing Institute back then. However, I don't meet the conditions of your institute. Hearing this, Zhong Shenglin was stunned for a moment. He quickly remembered the recruitment requirements of the A.M. Computing Institute. The first rule was that they only recruited undergraduate students and above, but no one expected a high school student to be so capable. Miss Pei, this, Zhong Shenglin choked for a moment. Bei Yunj couldn't help but laugh. It's quite normal. All the computing institutes in the country are like this. Zhong Shenglin heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. Fortunately, Bei Yunj wasn't angry because of this. In fact, Bei Yunj also understood that if it wasn't for Mother Pei in her previous life, she wouldn't have been able to work at the research institute at the age of 12. That's not right. Zhong Shenglin suddenly reacted. Marcus and the others only recruit undergraduate students and above. Why did you hack into their institute and not ours? Their salary is high, Bei Yunj said frankly. Zhong Shenglin was speechless. That made sense. All the current members of Marcus's computing institute who had been employed for more than 2 years could apply for a seaside villa in our nation. However, according to Marcus's bragging in the group last time, Bei Yunj was already teaching interns. In that case, Bei Yunj was already qualified to apply. No, he couldn't let Bei Yunj have the idea of emigrating. But Miss Pei still has her studies to complete in the country. She shouldn't be planning to go abroad in the next few years, right? Zhong Shenglin smiled and said, if that's the case, it's actually not convenient for Miss Pei to sign with Marcus and the others. Bei Yunj raised his eyebrows and asked, what do you mean, Elder Zhong? Why don't you be A.M.'s foreign aide? Zhong Shenglin smiled. Since he could not poach her directly, he would wait for an opportunity to build a good relationship with Bei Yunj first. Foreign aide? Bei Yunj asked. Miss Pei doesn't have to sign a contract with A.M., but she can enter and leave our place at will and use any of our facilities. Zhong Shenglin chuckled. Miss Pei, you don't like to be disturbed, do you? But that won't do you any good, Elder Zhong. Who said that? Zhong Shenglin laughed and said, Miss Pei shouldn't have signed a long-term contract with Marcus, right? Actually, I don't have any other intentions. I just hope that Miss Pei will consider A.M. after her contract expires. Of course, if Miss Pei still doesn't like it, you can still continue to be our foreign aid member. Thank you. If Elder Zhong needs me, feel free to let me know. Bei Yunj didn't hesitate and smiled. She did need an atmosphere to immerse herself in, but it was obviously not enough at home. A.M. was indeed her best choice. Then it's settled. Zhong Shenglin couldn't stop smiling when he heard this. Okay. Bei Yunj nodded. Soon. Zhong Shenglin watched Bei Yunj leave and hurriedly called Marcus. A few minutes later, the call went through. Zhong Shenglin hurriedly hid the smile on his face and coughed lightly. Old thing, are you crazy? Do you know what time it is? Chapter 162. But what Marcus did not expect was, next, he wanted to kill someone even more. It's nothing, Xiao Ma. I'm just thinking that it's not easy for us to be brothers for so many years. Thank you. Zhong Shenglin coughed softly and said gently. Unexpectedly, Marcus laughed. It's not easy. When we were still university alumni, our hairlines were the same. Now that I'm by your side, others might think that you're my father, right? Zhong Shenglin also put on a fake smile. Don't think that I don't know that you didn't go to the seminar last year. because you secretly went for a hair transplant. Nonsense. I didn't. Marcus immediately retorted. Zhong Shenglin chuckled. You're already so old and you're still faking it. I'm really embarrassed for you. Marcus tried his best to suppress his anger and smiled. Don't be jealous of our institute this year. There's another ruthless character coming this year. You're deliberately talking nonsense. Wait, Marcus, I almost forgot to tell you something. What? Marcus suddenly had a bad premonition. Your new member, right? I'll take good care of her for you. All the members of AM will take good care of her, Zhong Shenglin said considerately. What? Tell me clearly. Does our member need you to take care of her? Marcus was instantly jolted awake when he heard this. Damn, I've already told Bei Yunj that she doesn't need to sign any contract. Our institute will let her use it for free. You don't have to be polite. Your member is my member. We're all family, Zhong Shenglin comforted him. Who's family with an old man like you? Zhong Shenglin, don't you have any shame? Marcus gritted his teeth. In the end, he still couldn't guard against the old fox. All right, I'm hanging up. Good night, Marcus. Zhong Shenglin hung up the phone with a smile. He felt refreshed. Who asked him to show off every day? He had finally vented his anger today. However, Marcus, on the other hand, was no longer sleepy. He wished he could buy a plane ticket right now to murder Zhong Shenglin. Good man, just you wait. Don't think that I can't deal with you just because you're hiding in Country A. Marcus quickly got out of bed and opened his mailbox. When he saw the report in Country A and Zhong Shenglin's name, he immediately replied to the email. After doing all this, Marcus beamed with joy. Surname Zhong, pray that you can survive the next month. Until the next day. When Bei Yunj returned to school, she found out that something had happened to her again yesterday. Early in the morning, the head of teaching was waiting for her in class. Bei Yunj, you have the right to not work hard. But as a high school student, you should abide by the school rules. You're not here to ruin Hengda's reputation. The dean's face darkened. When Bei Yunj heard this, he lazily glanced at Chu Zhixing and raised his eyebrows. He was asking him what was going on. Chu Zhixing stood up. Director, Bei Yunj is not that kind of student. She's not in puppy love. Hearing this, Bei Yunj couldn't help but chuckle. She was a little surprised. She didn't expect that this phrase would be related to her now. You think that's true just because you say so. After school on Thursday, we'll meet at the pavilion at the back of the school at 6:30 p.m. This is written clearly. Who else could have framed her? Bei Yunj raised his eyelids and casually tore off the letter. Pei Yun. Chapter 163. In an instant, the dean shut his mouth subconsciously. The chill on his back did not go away for a long time. How could a student have such a terrifying gaze? Sure enough, she was not a good student in the past. Did you find this letter in my seat? Bei Yunj looked at Chu Zhixing. Chu Zhixing's expression was ugly, but he could only nod. At noon yesterday, the dean seemed to have received an anonymous report that someone in Class 7 was in a relationship. Later, when the dean came to Class 7 to lecture them, the Chinese class representative in the class happened to be collecting homework. As for the letter, it came from Bei Yunj's homework. Everyone saw it with their own eyes. Teacher, this was found in my seat. Is it mine? Bei Yunj asked carelessly in return. What else could it be? The dean's expression was not very good. However, when Bei Yunj heard this, her overly beautiful eyebrows relaxed and she smiled lazily. She casually sat in her seat and suddenly took out stacks of love letters from her drawer. There were 3 stacks in total, which could fill half of the drawer. Teacher, which one are you talking about? For a moment, the atmosphere fell into a strange silence. Bei Yunj lazily pulled off her gray tie, looking bright and high-spirited. Every frown and smile of hers was charming. The dean's face was so dark that it could drip ink. Obviously, he did not expect Bei Yunj to be in such a situation. Even the students in the class were in disbelief. Didn't they say that Bei Yunj had a bad reputation in school? Did all the boys not like this kind of girl who looked like a womanizer? All of them were pig trotters. Oh no, My gay friend secretly gave her a love letter last time. She can't be so unlucky, right? A delicate girl next to her said uneasily. Your gay friend? The one from class 1? Yes. Isn't that a girl? Can't a girl give a love letter? She retorted. At this moment, everyone fell silent. Okay. It turned out that it was not only boys who gave her love letters. Bae-yunj, what kind of nonsense are you doing at school? The dean's face was ashen. If Bae-yunj hadn't messed around, would so many people have sent her love letters? All of a sudden, why is it so quiet? Lu Yuanci, who had arrived late, glanced at everyone before focusing his gaze on Bae-yunj's table. He said in an unhappy tone, "Why do you have more than me?" Then, before anyone could react, they saw their school bully take out 2 big stacks of love letters from the drawer. Although Lu Yuanci had fewer tickets than Bae-yunj, it was still the first time Class 7 had seen such a big scene. Moments later, Lu Yuanci's eyes were sharp. He picked out a pink envelope from Bae-yunj's stack of envelopes, and then took out the envelope on top of his own. Both letters were signed by the same girl, Bae-yunj. Lu Yuanci chuckled. You're still casting a net. At the same time, the girl who was worried about her friend suddenly froze when she saw the familiar envelope. She didn't expect her friend to be someone who was secretly doing something big. She gave the same type of love letter to her deskmate. What kind of silly person would do such a thing? Bae-yunj glanced at the name on the love letter, lazily reached out to pull it back, and casually stuffed it into the drawer. You don't have one? Bae-yunj sneered. Lu Yuanci. Chapter 164. Dean, do I have to be punished just because I received a love letter? Lu Yuanci's voice had the unique magnetism of a young man as he chuckled softly. Then can I still graduate in this lifetime? Hearing this, the people in the class did not dare to laugh too loudly, but the dean's face was livid. He glanced at Bae-yunj and Lu Yuanci darkly. Both of you, come to my office. With that said, the dean left class 7. However, if this was in the past, Lu Yuanci would never go over. But now, seeing Bae-yunj walk out, he could only follow her. Bae-yunj. In the long corridor, Lu Yuanci shouted from behind. What's wrong? Bae-yunj asked. Qin Yojiao, has she harmed you before? Lu Yuanci asked. Hearing this, Bae-yunj turned around and chuckled softly. You're asking me? I'll believe you if you say it. Lu Yuanci looked at her calmly. Before this, he had always thought that this was a trivial matter between girls. However, ever since Mrs. Qin came to school and caused a ruckus, he realized that he was wrong. Bae-yunj was surprised. She looked at Lu Yuanci. Don't you like Qin Yojiao? Lu Yuanci furrowed his eyebrows. It's admiration, okay? You're my deskmate, I know you better. Student Lu, do you remember the last time Qin Yojiao came to school with a bandage on her arm? Bae-yunj's eyes curved into crescents, looking wild and playful. I did it. With that said, without waiting for Lu Yuanci to react, she walked towards the office. Bae-yunj had always been someone who did as she pleased, and did not like to explain too much to others. In the original novel, Lu Yuanci had indeed fallen for Qin Yojiao, so Bae-yunj did not intend to make him believe anything. In the office, Bae-yunj had just arrived when she heard the dean call Mrs. Qin. However, the dean did not expect that the moment he mentioned Bae-yunj's name, Mrs. Qin would hang up the call very quickly without saying anything. At this moment, the dean's expression changed. However, Bae-yunj's form teacher rushed over. Director, Bae-yunj just started class today. Why don't I take her first? Before the homeroom teacher could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by the dean. If you didn't spoil her, she wouldn't be so arrogant. Hungda's reputation is going to be ruined by her alone. Ignorant and incompetent, completely unlike a student. Sir, you don't understand student pay. Actually, student pay. The form teacher explained patiently. Cut the crap. Get her parents here now. The teaching director said angrily. The homeroom teacher glanced at Bae-yunj. When she thought of the explicit letter, she felt a little helpless. She had no choice but to take out her phone and send a message to the Bae-yunj's parents group. Class 7's homeroom teacher, Hello, parents. I'm sorry for disturbing you. May I ask if the two of you have time to come to school at this time? Qin Yu, yes. Qin Lang, sure. The head teacher's eyelids twitched as he carefully typed in the message. Head teacher of class 7, 1 is enough, Rose, Qin Lang me. Qin Yu. Qin Yu. What does it have to do with you? Questioned Qin Lang. Qin Lang at class 7's homeroom teacher. Teacher 1, I've already taken my keys and left the house. Seeing these messages, the homeroom teacher's heart skipped a beat, afraid that the two of them would start scolding each other. But in the next moment, the homeroom teacher saw a message notification. The group leader, Qin Yu, has removed the group member, Qin Lang, from the group chat. Chapter 165. Then Qin Yu sent another message. Qin Yu, I'm ignorant. I've made a fool of myself in front of teacher 1. Qin Yu, where is Gur? Qin Yu, flower for you. JPG. The form teacher's eyelids twitched, as if she had just finished watching a battle between wealthy families. With trembling hands, she sent Qin Yu the school building number. Soon after Qin Lang realized that he had been removed from the group, he sent messages to Qin Yu crazily. Yes, are you human? Question. Qin Yu, pull him back. Did you hear that? Okay, Qin Yu. I'm going to expose your ugly face now, and let your fans see what kind of dog they have become fans of. Smile, smile. However, at this moment, Qin Yu had already gotten into the nanny van, and went to Hongda High School with a clear conscience. Then, he glanced at the dozen or so messages sent by Qin Lang as if nothing had happened. His fingers moved lazily and he blocked the person directly. At the same time, Qin Lang, who was at the base, had just sent a message when he received a red exclamation mark. Qin Yu, this old B** starred. Hongda High School. Everyone gathered at the entrance of the office and discussed animatedly. How long had it been since she had transferred schools? They almost didn't know how many times Bei Yunja's parents had come to school. However, everyone was obviously watching the show. Ever since Mrs. Qin publicly cut ties with her, everyone finally knew that Bei Yunj was not an illegitimate daughter, but Mrs. Qin's biological daughter. They were really curious about the attitude of the parents of a wealthy young lady towards puppy love. Not far away, at the staircase, Qin Yojiao stood beside a girl who could barely be considered pretty. Don't worry, no one will suspect you. Will we really not be exposed? The girl's expression was empty as she muttered in fear. The information in the report letter can only prove that it's a girl from class 7. No one will think that it's you. But Bei Yunj. The girl felt guilty. Qin Yojiao interrupted her with a smile. Think about it carefully. If you don't let Bei Yunj take the blame, they will still suspect you in the end. Do you still want this semester's scholarship? Hearing the last sentence, the girl's body stiffened, her face turned pale, and her clenched fists gradually loosened. I understand. She glanced at the half-closed office door, and slowly began to convince herself. It's okay. Bei Yunj did not have a good reputation. She was the daughter of the Qin family. Someone would settle everything for her. This matter wouldn't cause any trouble at all. The girl's heart was still in a mess. However, when she saw Qin Yu walking down the stairs, her eyes lit up but quickly dimmed. An unknown emotion rose in her heart. Bei Yunj was really lucky. She was born with what others envied. On the other hand, she had to worry about the scholarship every day, afraid that she wouldn't be able to save enough money for the next semester's tuition fees. Look, was that Qin Yu? F***ck. Qin Yu is here to be Bei Yunj's guardian. What kind of godly fate does Bei Yunj have? You're not surprised, right? You didn't know that Mrs. Qin came to school to cause trouble last time, right? You didn't see how Qin Yu and Qin Lang doted on their sister. They were very fierce. What? There's such a thing? I'm envious. However, don't the Qin brothers like Qin Yojiao more? Chapter 166. That's true. Qin Yojiao is a proud girl. How can her parents be called over? Only Bei Yunj can get this treatment. Yeah, who doesn't like a smarter and more capable sister? Hearing these words, A dark look flashed past Qin Yojiao's eyes and she remembered Qin Yu's attitude towards her recently. Student Qin, I'll go over and take a look first. The girl did not notice Qin Yojiao's expression and only said, Okay, go ahead. Qin Yojiao smiled, but after the girl left, the smile on her face immediately disappeared. Bei Yunj, you're really capable. You can actually force me to this extent. Qin Yojiao stared at the staircase expressionlessly before suddenly bursting into laughter. Her pretty face was almost twisted. Soon, just as everyone could not help but secretly take out their phones to take photos of Qin Yu, they suddenly heard a scream not far away. Soon someone shouted, Oh no! Qin Yojiao fell downstairs. Is there anyone coming over? Bring her to the hospital quickly. These words immediately shocked everyone. They didn't expect that these things would happen one after another on the same day. Go quickly, what are you waiting for? Go and get the teacher to inform the parents. The girl who had always been on good terms with Qin Yojiao helped her up anxiously and shouted at them. Wait, isn't Qin Yu here? That's Qin Yojiao's second brother. Let Qin Yu send her to the hospital. Yeah, hurry and find Qin Yu. At this moment, many people surged to look for Qin Yu. After that, just as Qin Yu reached the third floor, a girl said softly with a red face, Mr. Qin, student Qin Yojiao fell downstairs and is very serious now. She's at the staircase over there. Do you want to? Hearing this, Qin Yu looked up slowly. His eyes were still handsome and arrogant, making people dazed. However, in the next moment, everyone saw Qin Yu buttoning up his black suit and speaking slowly. I'm sorry, can you move aside? This attitude made the blushing girl's face turn pale, and her body stiffen on the spot. Seeing this, Qin Yu walked around the girl, and prepared to continue looking for the office. Mr. Qin, are you going to look for Bei Yunj? But Qin Yojiao is injured now, how can you? Contact her parents if you have any problems. I'm just Bei Yunj's brother. Qin Yu's low and magnetic voice was slightly impatient, and he did not give her any extra glances. His attitude caused everyone to be dumbstruck. What's going on? Did Qin Yu mean that Qin Yojiao was not his younger sister and Bei Yunj was his younger sister? Wait, why couldn't they understand what he was saying? Was this world a fantasy? At this very moment, when the girl heard this, she felt an inexplicable sense of hostility towards Bei Yunj. She could not help but say bitterly, even if Mr. Qin quarreled with Qin Yojiao, he shouldn't ignore her like this. Meanwhile, not far away, a gentle voice sounded. Second brother. Following that, everyone turned around and saw Qin Yojiao's leg covered in blood. She was being supported by someone as she struggled to walk over with reddened eyes. Qin Yojiao hid the strong hatred towards Bei Yunj in her eyes. If it wasn't for Bei Yunj, she wouldn't have braced herself and done this just to make Qin Yu's heart ache for her. However, as long as Qin Yu was willing to take her to the hospital, she would win this battle. At this thought, Qin Yojiao's frown eased. Chapter 167. Within moments. Qin Yojiao's eyes were red as she sobbed. Second brother, Jiao hurts. With that said, Qin Yojiao still walked forward, wanting to hug Qin Yu's waist and act coquettishly. Even the others who saw this scene were moved. Thinking about it, no matter how angry Qin Yu was at Qin Yojiao, his anger would definitely dissipate when he saw his goddess sister like this. But in the next second, a scene that left everyone dumbfounded appeared. After Qin Yu saw Qin Yojiao pouncing on him, a layer of defense automatically appeared all over his body, as if he had been approached by germs. Then, before Qin Yojiao could hug Qin Yu moved to the side and avoided Qin Yojiao's contact. As for Qin Yojiao, she fell to the ground. She fell miserably and was in a sorry state. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. They even forgot to help Qin Yojiao up. How dangerous! After a while, Qin Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Qin Yojiao did not touch him. Otherwise, if Gur heard about it, he would be unclean. Second brother Yu, Qin Yojiao was stunned from the fall. When she regained her senses, she looked at Qin Yu in shame and disbelief, her face livid. She had never been treated like this since she was young. Besides, this person was her second brother. Don't shout. It'll make people misunderstand our relationship. There was no emotion in Qinyu's ink-black eyes. His deep and superior eyes made him look unreasonable. These words made everyone even more confused about the Qin family's affairs. Wasn't Bei Yunj the one who had been cut off? Then what was going on between Qin Youjiao and Qinyu? Wasn't Qin Youjiao the most doted on by her brothers? However, looking at the situation in front of him, Qinyu would rather Qin Youjiao fall in front of him than touch her. Those who didn't know better would think that Qin Youjiao was sick. Is it because mom hates Bei Yunj that second brother thinks that I did this? Qin Youjiao bit her lip and asked in a trembling voice, ignoring the injuries all over her body. The emotions in Qinyu's eyes were unclear, and there was a faint mocking smile on his thin lips. He actually treated a person like Qin Youjiao, who was ruthless to herself, like a little white rabbit in his previous life. However, when the others heard this, they all thought that they had heard the inside story of a wealthy family. It turned out that Qin Youjiao and Qinyu did not have a good relationship because of Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's methods were indeed amazing. First, she had received the Qin family's acknowledgement, and now, even Qinyu was coaxed into submission. However, it was no wonder. After all, Qinyu was not at home all year round and did not know anything. At a time like this, you still want to drag Guer down? Qinyu's question made Qin Youjiao's body stiffen. Soon, tears filled her eyes again and she said aggrievedly, "Second brother, I didn't." Suddenly, the door of the office beside her was pushed open, and the teacher was shocked when she saw Qin Youjiao lying on the floor covered in blood. What's going on? Everyone was silent. After all, she couldn't say that Qin Youjiao had fallen herself and wanted to hug Qinyu later, but he avoided her. That's why it dealt a second round of damage, right? Ridiculous. Hurry up and help him up. What are you all looking at? After the teacher finished speaking, she suddenly paused and realized that Qinyu was among the people watching the show. Qinyu looked at Qin Youjiao with an indifferent gaze. He snorted softly and the corners of his lips curled up. Qin Youjiao, do you think everything will be fine just because you have someone protecting you at home? Chapter 168. The emotions in Qinyu's eyes were so indifferent that it made one's heart turn cold. Next time if you find trouble with Guer again, I won't give you face either. I didn't. Qin Youjiao's eyes widened, but her heart was filled with fear. Qinyu snorted. Isn't it very clear if you did what happened in the forum? Hearing this, Qin Youjiao felt as if she had been splashed with ice water and the coldness seeped into her bones. However, very quickly, the teacher helped her up and interrupted everyone's thoughts. What are you all looking at? Is there anyone who can help her? Send her to the hospital first. At this moment, Qinyu did not want to waste time on Qin Youjiao. He tidied his clothes and walked into the office. He wanted to see which brat dared to touch his little princess. In the office, Lu Yuanxi could not help but tug at Bei Yunj's clothes secretly, wanting to talk to Bei Yunj. Hey, shut up. Before anyone could react, Qinyu strode forward and pulled Bei Yunj behind him. He glanced at Lu Yuanxi darkly. Who allowed you to talk to my sister? The rest of the people were speechless. Lu Yuanxi was speechless. Did he have to go through procedures to talk to his deskmate these days? You're Bei Yunj's guardian? The dean recognized Qinyu at a glance, but he did not expect Qinyu to appear in front of him as Bei Yunj's guardian. When the form teacher beside him saw Qinyu's cold gaze, he thought of how the brothers in this family almost fought with each other, let alone Lu Yuanxi. Hence he hurriedly explained, Brother Bei Yunj, this is not Bei Yunj's puppy love. Hearing this, the coldness on Qinyu dissipated a lot. However, before the dean could speak, he heard Qinyu say coldly from above, Tell me, who wants to defile my sister? These words made people suspect that Qinyu was not here to solve the problem, but to seek revenge, soon. The dean gave a fake smile. Mr. Qin, this isn't someone else's problem. We received a report that someone in Class 7 is in a puppy love. Coincidentally, we found a letter between Bei Yunj and that boy yesterday. Are you saying that it's my sister's problem? Qinyu chuckled. His ink-like eyes were filled with a faint coldness. The dean looked embarrassed. He didn't expect that the young masters of the Qin family were all bewitched and thought that Bei Yunj was innocent. He forced a smile on his face and said weakly, "That's the truth. You're the head of teaching, right?" Qin Yu's eyes were filled with mockery as he pulled Bei Yunj into his arms. "Did you see my sister's face clearly? If you fall in love at such a young age, you'll only be seduced." Bei Yunj, Lu Yuanxi and the homeroom teacher. Were the brothers of the Qin family so obsessed with their sister that they had lost their minds? The dean did not expect this to happen when he called Bei Yunj's parents over. His expression was ugly. In the end, he took a deep breath and handed the letter to Qin Yu. This letter fell out of Bei Yunj's homework book. Other than Bei Yunj, no one else in Class 7 has transferred schools. Hearing this, Qin Yu took the letter and looked at it. One of the sentences was written, "Thank you for appearing. From the moment you transferred to Class 7, I couldn't take my eyes off you. I'll see you at the school pavilion on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. After reading it, the coldness around Qin Yu was terrifying. P.S. End of 2 chapters. Why are all of you so hardworking? You little rascals. Chapter 169. Unable to give up? Haha, was this brat too stubborn? How dare he have designs on Qin Yu's sister? Qin Yu's handsome face darkened. At this moment, Bei Yunj happened to glance at the girl who had just chatted with Qin Youjiao. This seemed to be their class's Chinese class representative. Bei Yunj's eyebrows moved slightly, and she noticed that the girl was tidying up her exercise books while looking at them from time to time with sparkling eyes. Seeing this, Bei Yunj's lips curled up. Suddenly, everyone heard Bei Yunj say slowly, "Teacher 1, am I the only girl who transferred from our class?" With that said, Bei Yunj saw from the corner of her eye that the girl froze and did not dare to breathe. "Yes." The form teacher took a deep breath and nodded. Then Bei Yunj raised her eyes slightly. "Where's the person who changed shifts?" In an instant, the girl, who had been able to calm down just now, dropped the exercise books she was holding onto the floor. Similarly, her loss of composure attracted everyone's attention. "I remember. Xie transferred from Class 1 to Class 7 in Year 1. The form teacher suddenly remembered. "Teacher 1, are you suspecting me?" Xie's face was filled with disbelief, and her voice couldn't help but raise. "Teacher 1, are you siding with Bei Yunj because of Bei Yunj's background?" Another girl in the office immediately grabbed Xie's hand and mocked the form teacher. "Bei Yunj's family is rich, but you can't slander others for no reason, right? Teacher 1, have you forgotten who won glory for our class this time and got into the top 20 of the cohort?" At this point, she glanced at Bei Yunj with disdain and changed the topic. "Unlike a certain someone who always causes trouble and thinks she's so great. Is it your place to talk about my sister?" Qin Yu's cold voice sounded. This made the girl who had spoken up for Xie turn red and pale. She didn't expect Qin Yu to be so protective of Bei Yunj. How many girls of this age hadn't liked Qin Yu? At this moment, it was the girl's first time seeing Qin Yu's handsome face, and she couldn't help feeling wronged. Even if Bei Yunj is your sister, she will only drag you down and ruin your reputation. She bit her lip as if she was thinking for Qin Yu. Qin Youjiao is more like your sister. You don't have to do it for Bei Yunj. Suddenly, Qin Yu snorted softly. His magnetic and sexy voice was filled with extremely cold disdain. "So what if I have a good reputation? Can you compare to half a strand of my gu?" These words. "Qin Yu, so what if you're popular in the entertainment industry now?" The girl pointed at Bei Yunj, the sourness and jealousy in her chest making her unable to think. A person like her is a scourge. "My gur is my life. No one has the right to point fingers." Qin Yu's expression was lazy and he suddenly smirked. "As for the other person you mentioned, can she be compared to my gur? I, Qin Yu, only have one biological sister, and that's Bei Yunj." Not to mention the other students, even the teachers were confused by these words. Bei Yunj had not appeared in the Qin family for more than 10 years. Suddenly, she had become the legitimate young lady of the Qin family. And now, Qin Yu was starting to disown Qin Youjiao. Wasn't she the princess that the Qin family doted on? Chapter 170. But now, no matter who looked at it, they felt that the rumors were fake. This Qin Youjiao didn't look like someone who was doted on at all. At this moment, Qin Yu's ink-like eyes were cold and his tone was impatient. Regardless of whether he talked to my baby or not, let that brat come out now. Ah, a toad still wanted to touch his swan princess. He was tired of living. We still don't know who is in a relationship with Bei Yunj. The dean's expression changed. Hearing this, Qin Yu turned to look at the dean with an even colder gaze. He smiled faintly. So, just based on this letter, you're insisting that my sister is in a relationship? Not really. Before this, a classmate reported that a student from class 7 was in a relationship. I also saw that letter fall out of Bei Yunj's workbook when I was inspecting. The dean was terrified. After all, this was the second young master of the Qin family, and the most popular best actor in the entertainment industry. Dean, the situation is not clear yet. We can't say that this letter is from Bei Yunj. The form teacher couldn't help but say, Teacher 1, you mean that I'm the one in a relationship? Xie Ziyue suddenly became agitated. She covered her lips with both hands, and her shoulders trembled slightly. It was as if she had suffered a great grievance. The form teacher was speechless. Teacher 1, as teachers, we need to be fair. The dean suddenly said in a low voice. In his opinion, Bei Yunj was ignorant and incompetent, and would only cause trouble. However, Xie Ziyue was different. She was the one who received the scholarship every year, and was even the vice class monitor of class 7. She was a typical good student. Between the two of them, Bei Yunj was the only one who was in a relationship. The form teacher's lips moved, but in the end he could only say, Dean is right. Bei Yunj, didn't you refuse to admit it? Then explain yourself and make us believe you. The dean's tone was stern. Whether I admit it or not has nothing to do with whether I need to explain or not. She chuckled lazily. You. Also, Dean, do I need to hide my relationship? Bei Yunj seemed to be stating the truth casually. For a moment, it was hard to refute him. After that, she sneered and tapped the table with her fingertips. If that's really the case, how embarrassing would he be for me? How could he be so unpresentable? Lu Yuanxi couldn't help but burst into laughter when he heard Pei Yan's unique words. However, after laughing, he felt Qin Yu's dark gaze from the side. Lu Yuanxi. As expected of his brother, his sense of danger was extremely strong. The dean flew into a rage out of humiliation. Bei Yunj, don't be unreasonable. Hengda's director is so capable now? Qin Yu's cold voice sounded slowly. Suddenly, the dean's expression changed. No, Mr. Qin, you misunderstood. My Qin family has invested a lot in Hengda this year. It's more than enough to change the teaching director for the second year. Qin Yu's words immediately made the dean's face pale. The rest of the people did not expect Qin Yu to threaten someone in public for Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's thin eyelids moved, and after glancing at Qin Yu, she remained silent. Suddenly, Xie Ziyue spoke. I remember that before. Ren Pengfei often came to our class. She gritted her teeth. Chapter 171. However, her friend froze when she heard what Xie Ziyue said. Didn't Ren Pengfei come to class 7 often to look for Xie Ziyue? The girl stared at Xie Ziyue with wide eyes and suddenly remembered the ambiguous relationship between Ren Pengfei and Xie Ziyue. So this letter was not from Bei Yunj, but from Xie Ziyue. But then, when the girl came back to her senses, she looked at Xie Ziyue with a complicated expression. Finally, she lowered her head and chose to remain silent. She could not testify against her friend, just because of Bei Yunj. Ren Pengfei. The form teacher had some impression of this student. He seemed to be from class 1. Moreover, he was from the same school as Bei Yunj and had transferred to Hengda. However, one of them had transferred in the second semester of senior high. The other had transferred in this semester. Yes, Ren Pengfei said himself that Bei Yunj had pursued him before. Xiezue turned to look at her friend. Aya was the one who told me about this. Isn't that right, Aya? Aya stiffened and nodded. Yes. Hearing this, the atmosphere became even colder. Even the form teacher felt that in this situation, it would be very difficult for Bei Yunj to clear her name. Do you know Ren Pengfei? Lu Yuanxi asked Bei Yunj in a low voice. Bei Yunj was silent for a while before she pursed her red lips and said coldly, I know him. Strictly speaking, it was the original owner who knew Ren Pengfei. He was the boy from the next class whom the original owner knew when she was in high school. He was also one of the bullies who had bullied the original owner. At first, the original owner did not suffer much malice when she was in high school. But inexplicably, one day, Ren Pengfei started to pester the original owner. This caused the original owner to be looked down upon by the girls in the class. They thought that the original owner had deliberately seduced him. Otherwise, why would Ren Pengfei like her? Later, after a period of pointing fingers at her, the original owner could not take it anymore and rejected Ren Pengfei in front of everyone. But the original owner did not expect that this would be the beginning of her nightmare. Because of Ren Pengfei's instigation, everyone began to maliciously attack her and humiliate her. After recalling all this, Bei Yunj slowly rubbed her fingertips. Suddenly, Aya said, I heard that Ren Pengfei transferred schools because of a girl, right? As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the dean and the homeroom teacher changed. Indeed, Ren Pengfei transferred schools because he impregnated a girl in that school. Later, his father gave a lot of money to the girl's family to keep the peace. Then he changed schools for his son. Hurry up and get Ren Pengfei here. The dean's face darkened. The students of Hengda would never allow such humiliation to exist. If Bei Yunj and Ren Pengfei really did something shameful, he would definitely ask the principal to kick them out of Hengda. After someone went to look for Ren Pengfei, Bei Yunj's eyes fell on Xiezue. Xieziue's body stiffened. She didn't dare to look Bei Yunj in the eye, but she pretended to be calm. Love at this age is really fragile. Bei Yunj's eyes were bright and unscrupulous. She did not care about the dean's expression, who looked like he wanted to eat her alive. Bei Yunj, what nonsense are you talking about? Xieziue's teeth were almost chattering. She held on for dear life. Dean, if we find out who wrote this letter in the end, what will you do? What do you plan to do? Bei Yunj asked slowly. Chapter 172. The dean didn't even think about it. You'll be expelled. Hearing this, Xiezue almost lost her balance. Beside her, Xiaoya's heart skipped a beat. She didn't expect the matter to blow up so badly. In the past, the school had caught many couples in puppy love, but at most, they would reflect on themselves or be punished. But this time, the situation was obviously serious. Okay. Bei Yunj smiled carelessly. 10 minutes later. Just then, a boy who didn't even look handsome walked in. He had a strong body and weak-colored skin. Dean, why are you looking for me? With that said, Ren Pengfei suddenly noticed Xiezue beside him, and his heart skipped a beat. But soon, he noticed another beautiful girl next to him. She looked a little familiar. After that, when Ren Pengfei regained his senses, his eyes widened in disbelief. Your pay, Ren Pengfei. Who did you send this letter to? The dean slammed the table angrily, scaring Ren Pengfei. Then, Ren Pengfei noticed the gazes around him. When he met Lu Yuanxi's eyes, he was stunned. Why was Lu Yuanxi here? But soon, Ren Pengfei stopped thinking about this question. He glanced around and did not expect to meet Qin Yu's cold eyes. They were filled with a strong hostility and danger. Ren Pengfei's legs almost turned to jelly. Why was Qin Yu here too? Besides, he was looking at him with such a terrifying gaze. Ren Pengfei, do you think this letter was from Bei Yunj or Ziyue? Aya said immediately. Hearing this, Ren Pengfei immediately understood what was going on. He looked at Bei Yunj maliciously and was surprised. It turned out that Bei Yunj was so beautiful. He had heard people talking about her a while ago, and thought it was nonsense. In the past, before he transferred schools, he had confessed to Bei Yunj because he lost a bet. However, he didn't expect an extremely ugly girl to reject him. Therefore he taught Bei Yunj a lesson. However, he didn't expect them to meet again. It was really fate. Bei Yunj, Ren Pengfei. The form teacher interrupted sternly. Even he was afraid of Qin Yu's gaze now. After being yelled at, Ren Pengfei had no choice but to restrain himself. However, his heart was itching, and his gaze drifted to Bei Yunj. He cleared his throat, rolled his eyes, and laughed. Director, if you want to blame someone, blame me. Don't blame Bei Yunj. After saying this, Xie Ziyue and Aya heaved a sigh of relief. Ren Pengfei looked at Bei Yunj, who was staring at him with a faint smile on her face. She looked beautiful and seductive, and his heart softened. If this matter gets out of hand, I'm also willing to take responsibility. His voice did not stop. Qin Yu had already walked forward, grabbed Ren Pengfei's collar and punched him ruthlessly. In an instant, screams could be heard. I think you're tired of living. His tone was cold. Qin Yu exuded a dangerous aura from head to toe. His handsome and arrogant eyes were filled with coldness. A strand of loose short hair fell in front of his forehead, making him look refined and wolfish. Mr. Qin. The form teacher's eyes widened. She never thought that Qin Yu would really do something in school. He was F**king calling his parents to solve the problem, not to find trouble. Mr. Qin, control yourself and calm down. This is a school. You have to pay attention to your image. The dean also felt a chill run down his spine. He did not dare to go forward, and could only persuade him from the side. However, Qin Yu only looked down at Ren Pengfei. Get up and talk to me properly. P.S. Be good. Maintain your top 10 ranking. Update 5 to 6 p.m. Chapter 173. Ren Pengfei did not expect Qin Yu to hit him in public. His heart was filled with fear. At this moment, the eyes of the person who was secretly leaning against the door widened. Qin Yu actually hit someone for Bei Yunj. Wasn't this brother too godly? F***ck. What kind of godly brother did Bei Yunj get? Qin Yu actually hit Ren Pengfei for Bei Yunj just now. With such a brother, what is Bei Yunj thinking? Does she like Ren Pengfei? Qin Yu is really unlucky to have Bei Yunj. Compared to Qin Youjiao, Bei Yunj is useless. Someone could not help but mock. The discussion at the door did not stop. At this moment, a chuckle was especially eye-catching in the quiet office. Bei Yunj walked in front of Ren Pengfei and smirked. Don't you think you're very stupid for being so reckless? You. Ren Pengfei felt inexplicably flustered under Bei Yunj's gaze. However, after regaining his senses, he said maliciously, Bei Yunj, are you afraid because you don't dare to admit it? Bei Yunj could not be bothered to look up. We've known each other since year 1. Oh, so you still dare to admit it? Ren Pengfei was also scheming in his heart. Now that Bei Yunj was the young lady of the Qin family, her status had risen. If he could make the Qin family acknowledge his relationship with Bei Yunj, then he would be considered to have climbed up the ranks of a wealthy family. A strange glint flashed past Ren Pengfei's eyes. However, in the eyes of Xie Ziyue, her expression darkened and her hands clenched into fists. Ever since I transferred to Class 7, you can't take your eyes off me? Bei Yunj suddenly repeated what he had said in the letter slowly. She smirked. Really? The moment she finished speaking, Ren Pengfei's expression froze and a trace of panic flashed past his eyes. Although we used to be schoolmates, we didn't know each other. I only noticed you after you transferred to another school. Ren Pengfei was still feeling smug, thinking that his words were watertight, but when Xie Ziyue and Aya heard this, their faces turned pale. I see. Bei Yunj laughed ambiguously and glanced at the dean calmly. Dean, did you hear that clearly? After the dean regained his senses, his expression turned ugly. Xie Ziyue, Ren Pengfei, are the three of you treating me like a monkey? Just now these two people had said that Bei Yunj was pursuing Ren Pengfei. In Ren Pengfei's words, he and Bei Yunj had become strangers again before she transferred schools. After Ren Pengfei was yelled at, he was still at a loss. Aya panicked. Director, this. Ren Pengfei said it himself. Do you have proof? Suddenly Lu Yuanxi sneered. Aya panicked. Suddenly, Xie said calmly, "Director, even if there are different versions of this matter, it doesn't mean that Bei Yunj was wrongly accused." The dean's face darkened as he glanced at Xie. He still didn't want to believe that a good student would frame someone else. "I don't think what Xie said. It didn't make sense." "Director, it's not time for you to retire yet, right?" Bei Yunj asked casually. Hearing this, the dean's face almost twisted. What did she mean? Did she say that he was senile? "Bei Yunj, as a student you..." Before the dean could finish speaking, the door was suddenly pushed open. Chapter 174. Master Du. Qingyu was stunned for a moment. He did not expect Huashida to come. Why was he here? At this moment, everyone's eyes landed on him, and they could not regain their senses. She looked at the man's handsome and superior face, his well-tailored suit, and his light gaze, with an inexplicable aggressiveness, and an innate sense of oppression. "Come here." Huashida's low and pleasant voice sounded carelessly. After that, when everyone was in a daze, Bei Yunj went forward and grabbed the hand of the cold and dignified man in front of her. Her eyes curved. "Why is brother here?" With that said, suddenly Qingyu froze. He suddenly realized that had not called him second brother for a long time. Huashida's thin eyelids lifted and his gaze landed on her indifferently. He stretched out his hand lazily and pinched her cheek punishingly. "Are you causing trouble again?" The man's voice was clearly lazy and indifferent, but for some reason, one could hear the indulgence and casualness in it. "I'm not." After Bei Yunj finished speaking, the dean said cautiously, "Sir, are you from the Qin family too?" "My surname is Hua." Huashida's tone was slow and unhurried. His cold and distant appearance inexplicably made people even more nervous. However, at the same time, he allowed the little girl beside him to lower her head and play with his slender hand. The sudden sense of indulgence made people feel that the air in the office had become sweet. Was this still a student's parent? Those who did not know better would think that he was a student's puppy love. At this moment, Lu Yuanxi was also staring at the man not far away and felt frustrated. He had seen this man once. So at the same time, he knew the difference between him and this man. Mr. Hua. Although the dean did not know the identity of the person in front of him, from Qinyu's attitude towards Huashidu just now, it was enough to tell that he was either rich or noble. He took a deep breath and said with a smile, "This matter is mainly because of Bei Yunj." Then, before the dean could finish speaking, the girl with her head lowered suddenly smirked. In the next moment, Bei Yunj turned around, went around the man's waist, and hid behind him. Then he saw her holding Huashida's hand with one hand and the waist of his suit with the other. She stuck her head out from the inside of his bent arm. She raised her head. Her beautiful eyes were clear and harmless. "Brother, this has nothing to do with me." Everyone's eyelids twitched when they saw Bei Yunj pretending to be obedient. "Do you dare to repeat your arrogant and presumptuous behavior just now?" However, although the man glanced at Bei Yunj casually, he didn't say anything. His casual tone was a little intimidating, but it was obvious that he was indulging Bei Yunj. "If my daughter does something wrong in school, as her parent, I will take her back and educate her. But this time, the main reason I'm here is because I can't see my miss being wronged." As soon as he finished speaking, the dean's expression changed drastically. Even Ren Pengfei and the other two students' faces turned pale. Qingyu was someone who listened to her explanation just now. However, the moment this person entered, it was obvious that he wanted someone to give him an explanation. Of course. I won't let the student suffer." The dean could only put on a fake smile. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."